Good evening, Chatham. Welcome to the February 4, 2025 meeting of the Chatham Select Board. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chair. Seeing no such notification, I'll proceed. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31, 2025. This meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1508-945-4410, conference ID 203-386-491, #, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV Xfinity Channel 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. First order of business is establishing a quorum. Mr. Metters.
Present.
Mr. Dyken.
Present.
Ms. Davis.
Present.
Mr. Shell is present, and Mr. Nicastro.
Present.
Thank you. This evening we have several items. We start with our minutes from December 10 and December 17, public announcements and agenda requests. And then public comments on the business agenda, but please note that the first two items on the business agenda, we will invite and welcome comments alongside of the board. That business agenda consists of, number one, considering the land disposition agreement with Penrose for the project at 0 Meeting House Road. That is continued from January 21, 2025. And as I said, public comment will be accepted alongside of the board. And next is the grinder pump policy discussion, also continued from November 12. And there again, public comment will be accepted alongside of the board on that item. Next, we have the fiscal 2026 budget review and the 2025 annual town meeting articles review. First item there is the operating and capital budget for the Department of Natural Resources, and that will also include consideration of a warrant article with respect to dredging. Next is the operating capital budget for the Department of Community Development, and that will also include attention to the 26 Chamber of Commerce operating budget. Third on that list is the operating capital budget for the Department of Community Services. And under that heading, or as part of that discussion, we have a warrant article to consider with respect to the child care voucher program, and another to consider establishing a new revolving fund for the Riders Cove Respite Adult Day Care Program. And then finally and separately, we will consider an annual town meeting warrant article for a capital item, namely a new ambulance. And then finally, the board will go into executive session to discuss that strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Chatham Municipal Employees Association and the Chatham Managers Association. And there will be no return to open meeting. So with that, let me start with the minutes of December 10 and invite any comments or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes of December 10th, 2024.
Second.
Do you have any comments? I have one. Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Nicastro was present, not absent.
Yeah, I brought that to.
Oh, you did, okay.
Well, I wasn't sure whether he was present or absent, but he couldn't be present one place and absent in another,
Exactly,
so,
so he was present, yeah.
yeah.
Did you what?
I missed that.
I'm so proud.
Yeah, we'll put him down for absent tonight. Quickly, I have, on page 6, the fourth full paragraph, which begins with "there was a discussion." In the second line, I'd like to strike the word "considering." And then in the third and fourth lines, I would put a period after "select board." And then in the following, I would create a new sentence in the next line. "This would allow the board to retain ultimate authority," et cetera, et cetera. And then I'd like to ask that we add a paragraph, right after that, a paragraph that says, "The board complimented the staff for the detail and thoroughness of preparation for the presentation." And I know that we did that because I said it, so. With that, we have a motion and a second, which I presume is as amended. Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Abstain.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, and Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Okay, next, the minutes of December 17.
Move approval of the December 17th, 2024 minutes.
Second.
Any comments? Yep.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead,
Mr.
Dean.
Chairman. I just have two small, I think they're typos or proof issues on page 7, third paragraph, which is bolded and italicized. I think there's a double negative. In the second line, I would delete the word "no." And then on page,
Well, don't you have to add the word "any"?
well, it says neither the Select Board nor the Affordable Housing Trust
Oh, took
took action.
action,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine.
Okay. Then on page 13, the bottom, there's a motion that I made that should say lodging houses. It says loading houses. There's a G that's left out. That's all. Thank you.
Good. Okay, I have one, also on page 7 at the top. That sentence, it seems to kind of be missing something at the end. There was a question from the Affordable Housing Trust on the opinion of the building commissioner if the cost to renovate versus rebuilding completely. And my recollection is that the question was, are they prohibitive? But if somebody remembers the word better, I would suggest we say are prohibitive. Not hearing any objection, I will,
No, that was the sentiment,
yeah,
absolutely.
call the motion. Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Abstain.
Mr. Shell says aye. Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Okay, public announcements. I always screw this up. I got it right this time. I just want to note, I've been prompted to note that we should save the date Wednesday, February 26, at 5:30 PM in the large meeting room, this room of the annex. There will be a public forum on the proposal to adopt Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 17C, which allows the town to establish a speed limit of 25 miles per hour on any roadway inside a thickly settled or business district in town, on any way that is not a state highway. So please note that. Anything from the board? Yes, sir.
Quick question on that. Should we post that as a select board meeting to cover quorum consideration, or are we?
I would suggest that we do. I haven't spoken with the chair on the format for the public forum, but typically I would imagine the board would open it.
Okay.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Good. And then I'll take any other notes from, announcements from the board. Any from the public? Okay. Next, any public comments on the business agenda other than items A and B? All right, then we'll move to the business agenda. The first item is the land disposition agreement with Penrose. I note, and I see her. We have our town council, Lisa Mead, with us, and maybe we might start with you, Lisa, if that's all right, to just give us a kind of top-line summary of where we are and what this is all about, if you would, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, members of the board. As the chair indicated, this is the land disposition agreement for 0 Meeting House Road. I'm going to remind the board that actually the Affordable Housing Trust is the owner of this property, but the board actually is signing as to certain provisions of the agreement that are relative to the towns. So while in a typical land disposition agreement, you might only have the owner of the property signing, in this instance, it's important that the board also signed with respect to a couple of the provisions. And so I'm just going to tell you what those are before I go through the highlights of the agreement. So the board is signing with respect to paragraph 2C, which talks about their support in addition to the trust support of other public financing that the buyers are going to seek. It goes to paragraph 4A related to project expenses of the town during the comprehensive permitting process, which would be the responsibility of the developer, and it will be the responsibility of the developer. It goes to paragraphs 4.D.5, which involves the town involvement in the off-site improvements, which involve sidewalk improvements, which the town will need to be involved with either through cooperating with applications to DOT or giving permission on town property if required. It also requires the town to cooperate and work with the developer concerning the access of the owners who are adjacent and receive their current access through the property, how we resolve those issues. And then also with the resolution of obtaining access off of Meeting House Road directly into the project. So those all require cooperation of the town. Paragraph 5B requires cooperation of the town regarding the applications to EOHLC and other permits and approvals. Paragraph 6, importantly, involves the release and indemnification by the developer of the town related to any potential environmental matters. Paragraph 7 involves the indemnification of the town by the developer as well as the trust. And then paragraph 9B involves how the property will be assessed. It's just a representation based upon the assessor's confirmation about how the property will be assessed. So those are the paragraphs that the town is basically signing on to, so to speak. As an overview of the project overall, or the LDA, there is a purchase price that was part of the proposal from Penrose of $500,000. So that's the purchase price. They are paying $300,000 in cash and receiving a $200,000 loan from the Affordable Housing Trust. They're required to pay a $10,000 deposit. Much of this mirrors, of course, the except for the purchase price itself, the continuing provisions mirror a lot of what happened on Main Street as well. Again, with the title, if they don't perform and start construction by the date set forth in the LDA, they will have to provide the town back, give the town the land back. So we have a reversionary interest if the designated developer doesn't start construction in accordance with the timeframes. As far as the restrictions on the development, there's going to be, as proposed in their conceptual plan, 8 residential structures, including a management office and community space. Those will contain 42 rental apartments, 14 one-bedroom units, 23 two-bedroom units, and 5 three-bedroom units. They would not be permitted to change the number of units or buildings or the distribution of affordability without prior approval of the trust. And they have to be consistent with the conceptual plans that were previously accepted. 35 units will be rented to families at or below 60% AMI, inclusive of at least 6, but no more than 8 units rented to families at or below 30% AMI, and 7 of the units will be rented to families at or below 100% AMI. There will be an affordability restriction as well on this. both a tax credit regulatory agreement as well as a regular affordable housing restriction. And the tax credit regulatory agreement has the affordable rider that is titled the comprehensive permit regulatory agreement rider, which makes sure that the units will be affordable in perpetuity in accordance with whatever the terms of the comprehensive permit are. Then let's move on. Again, the designated developer is supposed to design the 3-bedroom units to include 2 full bathrooms. We have the same solar provision that they shall install solar panels on as many buildings as are reasonably feasible, where rooftop panels will produce a significant amount of electricity given the location and condition of the site. And then if they can't do that, they have to provide an explanation to the town, who has the opportunity to review it by a professional of their own in order to determine what is being proposed is appropriate. The designated developer will also undertake off-site improvements, including the installation of sidewalk on the east side of Route 137 from the crosswalk at the rail trail parking lot, connecting to the crosswalk across Route 28. Understanding that the work is within Route 137, they have to work with DOT to do that, and there's some language around that, and that's where we have some cooperation of the town. Also, the designated developer and the town will work together to seek approval from Mass DOT to pay for the realignment of the curb cut onto Route 137 to the north of the project to allow realignment and repositioning of the entrances and egresses for abutters north of the property. So the town will work with the developer on that, along with the property owners. And then during construction, importantly, the designated developer may not prevent access through the property for the owners to the properties to the north. So that current access cannot be impeded during the development while the other access is being developed or determined. As I noted earlier, there is a discussion about the access into the site off of Meeting House Road, and it is possible that there will be an A&R plan which would shave off a portion of that so the town could assist with any potential grants to help construct that access way and retain ownership. But the long-term maintenance would be required by the developer, and there would be a leaseback or easement agreement with the developer relative to that access. Then just from a timing point of view, the designated developer has to make good faith efforts like they did with the other project to file a project eligibility letter within 14 days of the execution of this agreement. But in any event, within 30 days. I will point out an omission that we have here. We have a schedule attached to Exhibit D, but we neglected to reference Exhibit D within the document itself. So we'll add a reference to Exhibit D after paragraph 4C6, I believe is the appropriate site, just referencing the schedule in Exhibit D as these sections refer to that schedule. And the developer has already provided that schedule to us. Then once they get their PEL, they have to file a comprehensive permit application to the ZBA within 120 days. And then they have to commence, the closing has to occur, construction of the project has to occur within 30 days from the closing date by the designated developer. I think that those are the highlights, in addition to the noted previously, the environmental release and indemnification, and the regular liability and indemnification agreement for the developer to the trust and the town. With that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Let's start with the board. Go ahead, Corey.
Sure. Basically, I have two at the moment. One's more minor, but it's more of a, for clarification purposes on choice of words. Page 3, section 2A, little b, last sentence. And my question is, the last sentence reads, "The trust loan shall bear interest accruing at an anticipated rate of 0%." Is that standard? I mean, 0% interest is nothing. I mean, I banked for years, and if I try to sell it to a customer, you're going to get a great CD for 0%. Probably not going to make that sale. So I guess I would look for clarification on that paragraph for starters.
So that is true. It's a 0% loan.
So why doesn't it just
Over
read it, no,
40 years.
it does not bear interest? I guess that's what I'm just understanding the choice of wording.
I'm happy to put, it won't bear any interest, but I would want to confirm that with the developer from a financing perspective.
Okay.
That they, right,
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a typo.
no.
Okay. Second question is, and most of this will actually come from possibly some of the public comments. I would like to get a little bit better understanding of the access to the butters to the north. I guess I want to make sure I'm clear of, during the construction, they're not going to be, it states, the limitation of, they're going to have access to the property, reasonable, efforts will be made to, minimize any interruptions, and they'll work together, et cetera, et cetera. I guess, what about, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. I wish we had a graphic. What is the situation with the abutting property that is, and I wish we had a map. There was a parcel called owner
Oh,
unknown.
yeah, I know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
the orphan property.
The orphan
which
properties,
is
so
to the
it's further-
west of the immediate abutter.
Correct.
And northwest of the property that's being developed.
Correct.
Yes,
So
it's
with-
1 acre.
So this proposal, I guess, kind of landlocks it. And I guess if someone steps forward and says, hey, I own it, and I want to do anything, is there anything that we need to prep for the future or be prepared to do to address that parcel? I guess that is the,
Right, so the parcel doesn't have access now, so the sale of this parcel doesn't landlock it, right, because it's already landlocked. So access to that parcel would have to be figured out in the future, depending on what happened to it, but the sale of this parcel doesn't landlock that, it's already landlocked.
so has there been any conversations, fast forwarding future thoughts on that parcel? No?
Well, I think the answer is that, and I don't have the proper legal language either for it, but my understanding is that is a parcel where, in colloquial terms, the owner is unknown.
Correct.
And so in order for anybody to exercise ownership rights over it, they would have to do something which is called quiet title, which is a process that requires you to go to court and essentially clean things up. It's a relatively lengthy process. By lengthy, I mean in years rather than months. And and that might be something that the town could be interested in going forward, but at the moment, it's beyond, it's contingent in the extreme. So yes, we're aware of it. At the moment, it's lying fallow, if you will. But in terms of its relationship to this project, it's tomorrow's question, if not beyond.
So it's safe to say legal counsel has suggested there's no action required at this state, is what I want to confirm, basically, for the town's interest.
I'll let Lisa speak that. I would hope that's what she says, but she has to say
Right,
it.
yeah, that would be the answer. And in fact, the town does not have an interest in that property at this point.
All right.
Can I ask a question on that point?
You certainly can.
Could-
Wait, are you done?
Just on that point, I have some other questions, and I'll wait my turn. Wouldn't the town, I assume nobody's paying taxes on this property, so wouldn't the town be able to take this, put this in tax title and take it? And with that quiet title? And in its current situation, regardless of the ownership of the abutting parcels, would there not be an easement by necessity to whoever owns that property? I don't know where the easement would run, but whether it runs on the subject property or on the abutter's properties. I'm just trying to get a little more clarification on the point that Mr. Metters raised. I don't think it's a
Sure, through
major
you,
issue.
Mr.
I just,
Chair.
pardon me?
Right.
I'm sorry?
Would you like me to answer the tax title?
Yeah,
Question?
please, no, yes.
So,
Well,
So
if
you
I
would-
may, just one thing. I don't, if anybody here knows, maybe Jill or whatever, how long it has been that this property has been owner unknown? My understanding was it's quite a long time.
I owned the property abutting in the 70s, and it was owners unknown at that time.
Okay, so with that perspective, yeah, please do answer.
So the answer is, yes, the town could acquire tax title, but of course, you've got all of the current requirements and the changes in the tax title law, but you could acquire title that way and then run, once you have an interest in it, run a quiet title action on it.
Can you answer the easement by necessity question?
I can't, because I have not examined it about where it would have access, where any other access would be, and whether there would be a more convenient access, and whether they had rights of access, back when it became owner unknown. So I can't answer that question, no.
But theoretically, there is an easement by necessity principle that someone might try to tap into in the future.
There could be. I think it's very, very, very remote.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jeff, any questions? You're good? Shireen? Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I just have a few questions. Let me mention two, I think, edits first. One on page 11. It's the fourth line up from the bottom. The word, it says unknown, it should say unknown. And then on, bear with me. Oh, on page 16, paragraph L, I think you want to begin that first sentence with the word neither. Neither the town, the trust, nor the designated developer shall be considered in breach. And
Thank you.
a couple of questions. Just for my clarification here. On page 4, the support, paragraph C, support for other public financing, refers to a grant award letter, which is attached as Exhibit F, although I don't think we've seen that. What is that, and how much is the grant? What are we talking about there? I just don't know what it is.
That's the town's grant to do the design of the access way. So this is,
Okay, it's not a financial.
Yeah, no, that's right.
yeah, it's mass development. I don't know, if Kathy, if you can show it.
It's not a money thing.
It's, the town was a recipient of it.
Okay, all right.
And we're essentially dedicating that grant, subject to making sure that we can do it appropriately. We're dedicating that grant to the design and cost estimating and preparation for developing the access.
175,000.
Yeah, 75.
Okay, all right, I hadn't seen that. Then on page 6 and 7, that paragraph, I'm a little confused. I just want to understand this. It says on page, at the top of page 7, that there are going to be two documents to be recorded, something we call a regulatory agreement and then a tax credit regulatory agreement. And the tax credit regulatory agreement is defined on page 6, but I don't know what the other regulatory agreement is that's being referred to.
The MassDocs set of documents have two regulatory agreements. One is the standard regulatory agreement that EOHLC requires as part of a 40B or comprehensive permit process. But then the tax credit regulatory agreement is an additional regulatory agreement that includes the 40B rider, because the underlying regulatory agreement can be superseded by the EOHLC or the tax credit financing, but the tax credit regulatory agreement cannot be. And so they require both documents to be filed.
Okay. What is the so-called residual analysis that's referred to in the middle of that paragraph that runs over onto page 7?
Sure. So this is the analysis that we talked about on the Main Street project as well, where the tax credit agency has to determine that the funds that are actually being given by the town are not considered a gift for tax credit purposes, but are actually a loan. And the residual analysis is that they can support, the project can support it as a loan, even though it's 0% financing, so that the tax credits work.
Okay, my last question about this paragraph goes to the issue, the timing of the recording. I was a little confused because it says that until such, on page 7, until such time as these two agreements are recorded, that the deed and, the provisions shall be binding. But the housing restriction is recorded at closing. Are
It will all be recorded at closing.
Okay, so the binding nature of the provisions of this paragraph last up till the time of recording and not beyond. Is that correct? Am I reading that right?
No, so the binding provisions last until, so you want to cover the gap, right? So the binding provisions, the provisions of 41 will survive the delivery of the deed and be binding on all successors in interest and title until the regulatory and tax regulatory agreement are recorded, and then they supersede those provisions. And they will include those same requirements.
Those are recorded subsequent to the deed?
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to ask a question in paragraph 5 regarding the egress in the north. Has there been conversation and discussion with the abutters and the town, the trust, or whoever? Because we know they've said there's a longstanding interest on their part in getting this resolved. I'm just trying to understand where this stands. Maybe you're not the party to answer that, I don't know.
Well, I can answer part of it. One of the abutters attorneys has reached out to me and to the trust, and maybe even to the board. And we have received their request for what they're looking for access. I believe that he might even be here this evening. And we have advised them that once the LDA is signed, then the developer and the town will sit down with them to talk about those issues.
And if I may, just to clarify, it's our understanding that, first of all, I think we may have seen a picture of him, but that he is present. He expects, intends, wishes to make a comment during the public comment period, and he's welcome to do that on behalf of his client. And there have been conversations also with the other immediate abutter as well.
Okay. And my last, I have two questions. The page 10 refers to the settlement statement. Is that similar to the type of settlement statements you see at a regular purchase and sale?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about there?
Yeah, closing disclosure, settlement statement, yes.
Okay. And finally, the force majeure clause, which I think is on page 16, paragraph L. So in order for that to be effective, there has to be an agreement signed between the parties to offer the extension, to establish the extension of time that is needed because of acts of God and so forth. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
That is correct.
Is that common, that you would have to get both parties to agree to that in this type of a situation?
Right, I've used it in this type of situation so that it's clear that both parties are clear about what the extension is, and how much time has been lost as a result of whatever
Okay,
whatever occurred, right?
all right. Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
I think that takes care of the board. Welcome comments from the public. Here in the room, we have two microphones, the podium and one in the middle aisle there. You're welcome to comment. Please introduce yourself. And as well, those of you who are online, and since you've been quasi-introduced, maybe, yes, Mr., is it Polonari? Poloni?
Poloni.
Yes, sorry. Please introduce yourself and identify your client, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jonathan Poloni. I'm an attorney with Senni and Associates, and I'm here representing Gloria Hicks. She's the owner of property at 95 Meeting House Road. And as I think you're all aware, she's had some concerns about how her access is going to change as a result of this development. It's very encouraging to hear just the comments that have come out this evening. And I don't want to take up too much time, but what I would like to propose is a very minor amendment to Section 4D5 of the LDA, which I think will just provide some clarity as we move forward through this process, and with a view towards the negotiations that are going to happen after the LDA is signed. So in regards to that particular section, which is located on page 7, the paragraph of interest, I'll just read it. It says, the designated developer and the town of Chatham will work together to seek approval from Mass DOT, and the designated developer shall pay for the realignment of the curb cut onto Route 137. And just that right there, where it references a curb cut, I'd suggest that we, or you, amend that so that it reads as curb cuts with a parenthetical S. And that way, if it will allow, I think, the parties to have a more open communication about that without feeling like they're boxed in by the language of the LDA. And just for a little context, my client, her property sits off of Route 137 on Old County Road, and that's what is providing her access. That's what we're looking to change and alter. Right now, that access is both vehicular and pedestrian. And once that's changed, she won't have that same access anymore. And so this one little change, I think, would make us very happy with the status of the LDA and make us feel much more assured about the conversations that we're going to have going forward with the developer and the town. Thank you.
So, Lisa, I'm going to ask you a question here in an effort to be responsive. And I'm going to ask you if you would be willing to recommend our amending that in a way that I think accomplishes the intended objective, but is a little less, the legislative history is a little less, let's say, dominant. And my suggestion would be that we change that line to say curb cut or cuts.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't think the developer would have an issue with that either.
And
I don't
that
think
would be my
that's-
next question, is whether you think Penrose would have any problem with that.
I don't think that would be a problem.
I'm going to leave it there for the moment and invite further comment from the from the audience. Yes, sir. Mr. Phillips.
Brian Phillips, 374 Orleans Road. I'm just wondering what is happening with the electricity generated by the solar panels. Are the tenants going to be able to utilize that, or is Penrose just going to sell that back to the electric company?
I think that may be a question that we really don't have a definitive answer to. My assumption would be, and I'm subject to comment from the staff or anybody else who has better information, that it would be dedicated to the benefit of the project and the utility costs of the project, so that it would indirectly benefit the tenants. But I don't think we know that for sure.
Okay, thanks.
You have someone online just guessed, I'm not sure.
Oh,
who it
okay.
is.
Is that Ms. Gibbs?
Yes, it is. Thank you. Yes, I have a question. After reviewing state and federal regulations about the actual lottery system, my understanding is that from discussions with the Affordable Housing Trust and the regulations, that after about 3 months, for those who live, work, or have children in the regional school district, that the lottery is open statewide. Apparently, Chatham can request and have background checks for any outstanding warrants and/or criminal convictions for proposed tenants. I don't think simply answering no on an application should be sufficient without confirmation of that. So I have 2 questions that I would like answered. Are background checks going to occur in Chatham, and would warrants, outstanding warrants or criminal convictions preclude tenants from being chosen? And assuming that answer is yes, when the attorney, Ms. Mead, was discussing occupancy before, she referred to them as families. But families, the actual correct term is household, because families can be defined as, anywhere up to 6 unrelated people living in the same unit. So my question would be, if criminal background checks are done, are they done on everybody, and or just like 1 or 2 people? Because I would think we would want to know that that is not going to be an issue in Chatham. Otherwise, if you don't do it on all the people, you have no idea who's living there. So, and I think that if that's the case and it's going to be done, I think it should be incorporated into the LDA, because I think it's Penrose's responsibility to make sure that would be done. And I think it probably should have been included on the Buckley property as well. I guess that's too late to do. So I'd just like to know one way or the other if those are going to be criteria that we can expect. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to say, I'm going to ask Lisa to help us with that if you can, to the extent that you can. In all events, I'm going to say I think a definitive answer that we have confidence in probably has to abide some research and discussion with Penrose, which we're perfectly happy to do. But for the moment, if you can help us with that, please do.
Sure. The terms of the lottery are governed by EOHLC, and they would be set forth in the comprehensive permit, not appropriate for the LDA. So those kind of details would be part of the comprehensive permit and driven by the requirements and guidelines of the lottery from EOHLC.
Do you happen to know what those guidelines are? I mean, it would be nice if we knew that ahead of time, if that was going to be done.
I don't know those guidelines off the top of my head, no.
So who would? I think it's important to know that. And I think it's important for Penrose to know that.
Lisa, are those not a matter of public record in the in the fair housing statutes and regulations of the state?
Yeah, the EOHLC has lottery guidelines and forms of lottery documents available online.
So whose responsibility is that? Am I supposed to do that, or is there someone on staff that should do that and get an answer to that for the public? I think we should know that, and I've read them. I'm not an attorney. State and federal regulations seem to be different there are different criteria for different types of affordable housing. And I think we should know if it's going to be done. I can't even review an application unless you're actually applying. I can't see what the questions are on applications. They don't allow that unless I'm actually filling one out. So I would think somebody needs to know that so that the public can know it.
Well, I think the best, I'm subject to different thoughts from the board here. My own reaction here is that your concern, your interest is noted. It's obviously a community interest. It's one that is guided and governed by rules and regulations that are used broadly across the state, but we will take it under advisement to make sure that folks are aware of what those are and specifically the concern that you've articulated.
Yeah, and I think it should be done sooner rather than later. I think it's important for people to know that as we move forward. And I just don't understand how nobody knows this answer. It's kind of simple and it's kind of serious. So, you know, we have a whole bunch of people here that are supposed to be specialists, and we can't seem to get an answer, a simple answer to that question. It is a matter of public safety for Chatham. It's a small town. So I'd appreciate it if it would be answered at some point soon.
Duly
Since it
noted,
can't be
thank you.
answered tonight.
Duly noted. Anything, yeah, yes, Carol, Ms. Gordon?
Yes, Carol Gordon from South Chatham. I just want to say that I think it's sad that Gloria Hicks had to get representation in order to even get this far with the driveway that she had been promised. I think it would have been really in our best interest to work this out between the Affordable Housing Trust and the Select Board. Not everyone can really do those out-of-pocket expenses, and everyone needs to be heard. So I just wanted to say that I think I'm glad it's come this far. I'm glad that you're listening to her representation, but I think that maybe it could have been done a lot better by just working the boards together with a resident's concern.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Anybody else? I will take a motion. If you're ready to make one and deal with it.
I move to execute the land disposition agreement with Penrose for the sale and development of housing at 0 Meeting House Road. As amended.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have said that. I will recommend this tomorrow night to the Affordable Housing Trust, and I do recommend that we do it here tonight, as I suggested.
Second?
Any further?
Any discussion on the motion? I just really wanted to make a...
Jan Burke, I also represent Gloria Hicks. I'm not clear on your vote. Are you incorporating that amendment that Mr.
Yes,
Poloni?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
We
yes.
could not understand your words.
I'm sorry, that was my
Okay.
fault. Yes, we're going to add or cuts in the spot that council recommended. Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to note that we received a communication from Carol Gordon on behalf of the South Chatham Village Association. Just wanted to make sure that that was entered into the records so that the staff and the town leadership can take that information into account as this progresses. And the only other comment I'll make is I made it, I think, when I voted to approve the LDA for the other property. I view my role at this time as to just try to make sure as best I can that the interests of the town are protected in this document, and that's why I will support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, then I will call the roll, and I'll start with you, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dyken?
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Lisa, I think we're done, so thank you very much. See you tomorrow
Thank you.
night.
All right, thank you all very much. Have a good
Okay.
evening.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Next, we have our grinder pump policy recommendations. Rob, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rob Faley, Director of Public Works. So this is really a continuation of the grinder pump discussion as well as grinder pump policy recommendations. Back in November 12, 2024, the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee and the Summer Residence Advisory Committee both made recommendations to the Select Board, and we also heard comments from concerned citizens as well. These recommendations take into account the considerations that were evaluated and regarding equity and service and cost to the town. So we came up with the following recommendations. The first is acquisition and provision. It is recommended that the town pay for one grinder pump per household for those residents who need them, whether from low-pressure sewer installed at the street or due to elevation challenges that restrict their ability to connect to gravity sewer. The second recommendation is regarding installation. It is recommended that the town provide a homeowner with a one-time universal stipend to help offset installation costs associated with grinder pumps. The fiscal impact is for 1,200 grinder pumps over the next 30 years. We can go to this spreadsheet. Obviously, the first 2 years have a greater fiscal impact. And that's because there have been approximately 120 grinder pumps already installed in Chatham. The second year accounts for another 120 grinder pumps that either have received permits, filed applications, or have received connection orders from the Board of Health. So that would be in the first 2 years, approximately 240 grinder pumps at a cost of $2.166 million.
Thank you. If I may, I'm just going to make a comment and then open it up to questions as well as comments eventually from the public. This has gone on for 2.5 years or more. A lot of work has gone into it. The Water and Sewer Advisory Committee has had untold number of meetings on the subject. I know SRAC, the Summer Residence Advisory Committee, virtually dedicated their whole summer to this. The group that I know, I think they've sort of identified themselves as the Lime Hill Group, another group of concerned citizens who've done a tremendous amount of work and submitted all kinds of information to various parties, but principally to town staff. It's been a big effort on all parts, a lot of different points of view. I just want to commend the staff. I really appreciate how you've integrated and pulled that all together and come to what is obviously a compromised position from all points of view, but something that I think represents a real step forward, and I want to say thank you for that. So with that, I'll open it up to the board for questions. Shereen?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I concur with Mike. Everybody did an outstanding job on this. I just, so that everybody can get an understanding of the installation recommendation of $2,000, Rob, where did that number, how did that number land at 2,000?
So we looked at a number of different variables. I know the town of Falmouth provided $1,800, but that information is a few years old, you know, accounting for some inflation. We also had surveys that went out to residents who have installed grinder pumps. We kind of took a mean average of their additional electric costs. Those that have detailed the information to us, we broke out the electric costs and we kind of averaged it.
Okay.
It was just over $2,000.
Thank you.
Corey?
Question for clarification, the acquisition, both acquisition and installation provisions that are put out in the recommendations, is it strictly for new grinder pumps, or what about the 100-plus grinder pumps that have previously been installed and are currently operating? Would they qualify for any of this?
That's the recommendation,
Okay,
yes.
just for clarity, thank you.
So that's the first 120 and the ones that are already installed. So I think it's a great policy. I like the fact it's been a compromise, it's been vetted. Water and Sewer has vetted it. SRAC spent, as Mike noted, spent the whole summer on it. And it's an investment, and it's an investment that actually needs to be invested, because we have tens of millions of dollars in our wastewater system, $100 million invested already in our wastewater system, and this is the key to maximize our investment in the wastewater system and to do what the wastewater system is intended to do, which is to remove nitrogen from our fresh and salt water. So this is an investment in our future, and it's an investment in, frankly, recouping the massive investment we've already made in our wastewater plant. So I really love the notion that the folks that are far away, and can't tie into have to have a grinder pump to tie into a low pressure. I'm really pleased that that's been included. And I think the $2,000, it's, maybe it's $2,500, maybe it's $1,500, but it's a gesture for folks that want to hook up. So I really like the policy a lot. We're going to use bond money to kick it off, and we'll see how we pay for it going forward. But again, I just think it's an investment in what we've already invested in, that we're maximizing our investments. I'm very much in favor of the policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo what you said at the beginning of this item, that I found the information that we got from all three of the groups, including the two committees of the town, very helpful. And sometimes there was disagreement from one group to another, but I think it was all helpful to the town to get this information. I wanted to suggest the addition of 2 words in the first recommendation in the third line, where it says the town would provide the grinder pump whether from low pressure or due to elevation. I would want to suggest after the word elevation, the insertion of the phrase or distance. So would read.
I think that's the intent. Am I wrong, Rob?
That's correct. The greater the distance, the greater the elevation challenge would be. So that was the intent of just the elevation.
Okay, we'll leave it as is.
Well, the reason I asked the question was to say that your language just clarified what was intended. So I think
Well,
it's
then
better language.
Then I think it should go in. It'd be helpful. It doesn't explicitly say what you said in response to Mr. Metter's question about whether this would retroactively apply to the folks that have already installed.
Yeah,
about
that's
120 of them or so.
That's the first line on the.
So that's them.
On the spreadsheet, yeah, that's the 120 who've already installed.
Okay, and is the amount of money that they would get the same as those that are going to install going forward? Has that been determined, or?
After discussion with town council, I believe a more consistent number would be desired.
Okay.
And that's why we use the term universal, so regardless of if it was for the 120 prior to this vote of the board or moving forward, we wanted to make sure it was the same stipend that
Well,
would be
that
provided.
goes to the whole issue of equity. I agree with what's been said. I think this is a good a compromise resolution of the matter that has been challenging the town for a couple of years. Thank you.
Jeff?
I just wanted to comment that I think it's going to help folks that are on the fence about, tying in because of dollars. I think it'll really help. So, again, I think it's wise.
So before I call for the vote, with respect to that last point, I don't want to upset the apple cart. I mean, this is hard won, but I would like to, I'd like to have an understanding that the principle of this, approving this recommendation is that we're doing what's appropriate, subject to council's opinion, but that if, council can get comfortable with it, that with respect to those that are already installed, a relevant piece of data would be what the person spent on the grinder pump. So if somebody spent $2,000 on the grinder pump and they've got a receipt to prove it, or otherwise they can get something from the contractor, they get $2,000, not whatever the number is, $7,000. And similarly, if somebody spent $8,000, they get $8,000, not $7,000. I don't want to change the policy. I just simply want to say that that I'd like the board to have the feeling that in that spirit, we're approving this this policy.
May I ask a question?
Yeah,
You know,
please.
say somebody installed a grinder pump for $2,000, but it was 20 years ago. They lost, you know, the time value of money, they've lost that money. If it was otherwise invested, would be maybe $7,000 nowadays. You know, we can slice it any way you like. but-
The answer is they get $2,000. My answer would be they get $2,000. But look, I don't want to upset the apple cart. I've made the point. I'm going to ask for a motion on the recommendation as amended. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please. Yeah, public comment. Mr. Oppenheim.
David Oppenheim. First of all, I think this is a very good compromise, and sorry it took so long, but I think everybody's better educated and et cetera, with all of this. One question I have, it's a technical question. Somebody's put in a pump 2 or 3 years ago, and whatever they paid for it. And I think one of the things you're going to find out is it's going to be difficult to figure out what they paid for, because a lot of the bids just were installed prices without the specifics of the particular pump, but that's beside the point. And it's out of warranty now. I know there's an effort to extend the warranties on these. So if it is this brand, how will that warranty work? So that's a question to be answered. So it's like, in my case, in the case I'm asking, my daughter's pump was about 2.5 years ago. I think the warranty at the time was a year. It might have been 2. I don't know exactly. And you're talking about getting extended warranties, I believe, for 5 years as a negotiating point. So how would that work into the equation? The reimbursement, I understand, which is great, and I think that's fair and equitable.
Do you want to have a
And then I
go
have
at that,
another
Rob?
question.
Yeah, no,
I'd like to hear that first.
Sure, so the warranty would be for new grinder pumps that the town purchased, an extended warranty negotiated as part of the price of the purchase of the new grinder pumps. I don't know of a conceivable way that we can warranty previously purchased grinder pumps.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted that to be clear. So somebody that's bought one 2 years ago may be at risk in some fashion. The only other thing that I think this is a good solution, and I think it is the way Falmouth did it and other towns have done it. I think it's pretty good. And I think it takes into account inflation and things like that. I mean, people that put in their pumps a few years ago were paying 3 or 4. I think it's important to point out that I think a lot of this has happened because the cost of doing all this stuff has gone crazy. And the idea that I think it's important to know that this was understood. When we did Absegami Run, it's before the pandemic, I think 6 or 7 years ago, we certainly understood that grinder pumps were going to be taken care of. So this solidifies that and meets what we felt was the town's obligation along those lines. I think the one thing that people still need to understand is those on grinder pumps will never be, and this was understood from the start, on full equity, because when the power goes out, those on gravity can use their facilities, and those on grinder pumps cannot unless they have a generator. And like everything else, back when this was started in 2011, and you could build a house for under $200 a square foot, now you can't build a house for under $500 a square foot. And these are specialty items that we're talking about here. Generators have gone from $2,000 to $3,000. You're looking at $8,000 to $12,000. So I just think that everybody should also acknowledge and be aware that those that are on grinder pumps, the town has saved a lot of money by putting pressure systems in, low pressure systems, which is spread across the tax rates. But there are people that, even though the electrical is a relatively small, a monthly charge or whatever it's going to be, but the real issue is the use of their house, which will be compromised unless you have a generator. And I just think that needs to be understood. And I also hope that while we're doing this, and this solves this problem for installation, I think the town should continue to study the idea of long-term maintenance, not only for the good of the people on grinder pumps, but for the good of the whole sewer system. I think maintenance, we're going to invest a lot of money in part of our budget when we install things, whether it's sewer systems or build schools or anything else, is being prepared to maintain them. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll just note the staff memo makes it absolutely clear that maintenance is a subject for future discussion. So, Mr. Bogardus?
Bruce Bogardus, Vice Chair of the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, and I have a question for Mr. Faley. Neither the Chair or the Vice Chair of the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee were part of your work on this. I think you did a great job of assimilating all of the inputs and information, but I do have a specific question regarding the $2,000 dollar amount, which I know is a non-perfect arrival point, I guess. But did you have an opportunity to talk to any of the septic and sewer installers in town, such as T.W. Nickerson or Robert Bauer?
I took some of the information that you had provided previously, Bruce, for the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, and took that under advisement when we were creating that $2,000 number, wherever that should land.
Okay. All right, because that's more than I got from input from those people, the 2,000. It's more than $1,000 higher, so I wondered where it came from. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Brown, and then Mr. Byrne.
Hi, Michael Brown, Absegami Run. I'd like to talk about the $2,000 stipend, if you'd like to. Has nothing to do with ongoing costs of electric. First of all, it's just for the consideration for the electrical component of the installation. Comment was made right just before my appearance is that the $2,000 was about $1,000 higher than some other sources. Well, I have 3 sources from 3 local contractors within the past 2 years, and I can provide that information if necessary, who the contractors are. One was $1,800, one was $2,000, one was $2,200 for the electrical component of the hookup. The average of those 3 numbers is $2,000, but I would gladly pay $1,000 if I had to pay it out of my pocket. It's just not the going rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Byrne? Sorry, Burns.
That's okay. Bob Burns, 147 Lime Hill Road. A couple comments. Going back to this 2000, there was a study done in Falmouth where they went back to all of the installations and they interviewed contractors, homeowners. And so this is public information. And what they came up with was $1,800. And that was 10, 15 years ago. So recently I spoke with Dubas and also with Speakman. And what they do in their bids is they put in an allowance for electrical for $2,000. So that $2,000 number is pretty consistent if you look at the data from Falmouth and you also look at what's happening here in Chatham. A couple other comments. I'd like to thank this board for listening to us. As the chairman said, it's been over 2 years. So it's going to be 2.5 or 3 years in October. So appreciate you listening to SRAC and to the Lime Hill Group and to some of the other people in this room about this whole thing. I think what we've come up with is a good plan. I think one thing that is going to happen down the road has got to be this whole thing on service. Of the 125 pumps that have been installed, I think they've been installed after the mandate to connect. Those pumps were purchased directly by the homeowner from F.R. Mahoney. They have a 1-year warranty. I've heard some of them got a 2-year warranty, so those pumps are now out of warranty. Most of those pumps are out of warranty. And if I talk to homeowners on Lime Hill and Absegami, there are 7 that went in, pumps, 3 on Absegami, 4 on Lime Hill. They have no idea what's going to happen once they're out of warranty, and they're looking for answers. Do they stick with Mahoney? Do they do something else? And I think that's important, because if you look at the Mahoney charges for coming to Chatham for service calls, astronomical on that spreadsheet. So a homeowner with a problem could be paying a few $1,000s if you have a problem. The other thing to keep in mind is I think the goal is to, in this whole process, is to get people to connect. And there are a lot of people that are sitting on the fence. Speakman has bids, Dubas has bids. People are saying, we're waiting for the town to make a decision on this. So I think that's important. The other thing that's important is this service issue, because you want to make sure that as people start to connect, they're happy. Because the word's going to spread over the next 20 years. I have a grinder pump. Yes, it's working great, great service, everything's working great. I think that's an important issue. And what happened in Chelmsford, and we've talked about Chelmsford, they're all out of warranty. It's back in 2005, 6, 9. What happened is it didn't get off to a good start. And that's when the citizens got upset, and they instituted this fairness committee where they got some legal advice, and they really started to raise Cain within Chelmsford. Chelmsford backed off, and Chelmsford fixed it. They took ownership of the problems. They bought in a third party, and this was Weston and Sampson. They've had Weston now for, I think, 10, 15 years. Weston's doing a good job. Weston fixes the pumps on site. So they get the parts from Mahoney, fix them on site, they swap the pumps out. So Chelmsford, 600 pumps, they're in pretty good shape. So again, I think this third leg of the stool is this whole service maintenance, and I think that has got to get decided sooner than later, because we don't want to have problems with the people coming off of these one-year warranties from Mahoney. We're asking for 5 years, which I think is great that we're going to get 5, if we can get 5 years. So those are my comments, so I hope that helps. But again, thank you for taking it this far and listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go online. I think you're asking to be recognized. Jeff Spalter, yes?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please.
Hey, thank you. Jeff Spalter, Chair of the SRAC. And while I don't want to be too redundant, unfortunately, I'll be a bit redundant. First, by just thanking for everyone who was involved in this for getting together and working towards a really good solution. The fact that our town is willing to listen and take some real strong actions just really makes you feel good as a resident of the town that they're listening. So thank you very much for that. The outcome, I think where we're headed is great. I just wanted to echo briefly what Bob Burns had just mentioned about making sure that we don't lose sight of service and maintenance long term. There are a lot of models out there that we can learn from and emulate, and we shouldn't have to create anything from scratch. There's a lot of good work done, so I hope we take advantage of that and get back to that relatively soon. But thank you all so much for getting us this far. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm going to go, is that Ann Ryan asking for recognition?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
I'm Ann Ryan. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
we can
okay.
hear you. Thank you.
I'm a member of the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, but I'm speaking tonight as an individual. And I appreciate the effort that's been put into the grinder pump policy recommendations. However, I expected that the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee would have a chance to review and discuss them before the Select Board's deliberation. After 2 years of work on this issue, that opportunity would have allowed us to provide some additional meaningful input, I believe. And while I understand that the town manager followed the board's directive, it's important that our committee and the public who have spoken this evening to have time to review and provide feedback before a final decision. And also, given the complexity of this issue and the unresolved maintenance and replacement policies, I would respectfully urge the board to defer action tonight to ensure a thorough and well-supported policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that Mr. Salter that's seeking recognition?
Yes, it is. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead, but please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, Bob Salter. I live on Lime Hill, and I've been involved vocally both in the paper and in some of the meetings. And I want to reiterate what Dr. Oppenheim said and Bob Burns and Jeff regarding a thank you for your effort for trying to find an equitable solution. I've already put a grinder pump in, and and the $2,000 electric charge really doesn't cover the other aspects of connecting a generator and those other safety factors that you need in order to be able to, you know, keep your house running if the power ever goes down. But again, I want to thank you. And then because I was involved early on, there was a lot of discussion about the town's intent in 2009 about paying for the pumps and those kinds of things. And 15 years later, here we are, and it looks like you're finally following through and what the intent was. I just hope that 15 years from now, we're not talking about the maintenance of these systems when we need to replace them and seeking reimbursement for replacing the core of those pumps when they reach the end of their useful life. So I appreciate that you've put in the record that you will discuss maintenance later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Gibbs, I think that you're a
Yes,
G
thank you.
tonight.
Yes, I didn't put in my full name. Yes, I have a question, two questions, quick questions first, before I make my comments. Now, this is a policy, but I do believe this has to go before town meeting, correct? And if so, is it a majority vote or a 2/3 vote?
The policy, I don't believe, needs to go before the town meeting. Obviously, at the moment, the proposed financing for it, which is the $32 million bond, does need to get, I say the financing for it, the element of the $32 million proposal for bond financing needs town approval, and that's a 2/3 vote. Yes?
Okay, that's
And a
what I
ballot
meant,
question.
not the policy. not the
And a
wording
ballot
of the
question,
policy,
yes, sorry.
Okay, all right. I'm going to speak as a taxpayer, not someone with a grinder pump, but I think this request is premature, and I think it's discriminatory, and I think it sets a bad precedent. We still have not been provided the projected costs for completion of phase 1 of the sewer project that was supposed to be completed by 2030 under the comprehensive wastewater plan. That document is about 1,200 pages long. It was approved by the town back in 2010, and everybody in town has been paying for it ever since. When it's complete, the 2/3, there are 5,000 residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional properties that were supposed to have to be connected by 2030. Right now, the infrastructure is only in place for 900. So we are way, way off target on that. We have spent or appropriated well over $150 million for those 900 properties. So just through extrapolation, there is no question in my mind that to even meet phase 1, which is sewering 2/3 of the town, is going to cost $2 to $3, maybe even $400 million more, which is taxpayer funded. So the fact is, every property owner who will one day be on the sewer or not will have tremendous expenses, not just those requiring grinder pumps. Those with significant setbacks from the road on rear lots. Half of the properties are rear lots. Those on gravity pipes who happen to be between two pump stations, where that is going to require excavation by them to upwards of 20 feet to reach the stub, because that currently is what has to happen. It's up to the property owner. It is going to require trenching of their property or boring from that stub all the way to their homes. impacting their landscaping, impacting their irrigation systems, impacting their driveways in many cases, and requiring replumbing of their homes if the hookup is not in the front of the home and can't be accommodated. I think the town is opening themselves up to lawsuits from all those property owners for discrimination who either have incurred these expenses or will be required to in the future. And I think you're opening up a can of worms by picking this. You're putting the cart before the horse. This is a very small part. I recognize that everybody here, the proponents all have grinder pumps. But there are a lot of features of the sewer system, whether you're on gravity or forced mains, that are very, very expensive. And the tragedy of it is that 2/3 of the town who has been paying for it will never get sewered. It's just not happening. It's moving way too slowly. And yet they are being required not only to pay for the 150, 200, 300, 400 million, but also on top of it this, when they will never have the benefit from it. We have spent the last few years redirecting our sewer system production. Instead of trying to focus on those 2/3, we redirected sewering up to Meeting House so that we could sewer East Harwich, so they wouldn't have to build a facility. And now we're redirecting it for different affordable housing projects, and I think it's really unfair to those taxpayers who are constantly being hit to take care of individual groups, and they will never see the sewer. And we all know now, today, being on sewer increases the value of your home. So those people who have been paying and will never get on sewer is kind of a double whammy for them. I would say that unless and until voters are provided the financials for the entire cost and timeline of meeting our mandated state requirements for nitrogen reduction for at least phase 1, so that voters can make an informed decision at town meeting to consider this proposal, no town funds should be appropriated for a select group of people who happen to have the attention of the town boards. I appreciate all the work that's gone into it, but we have problems with the sewer and we have problems with water in terms of the expenses that the private citizens are incurring for that as well. And they're both public safety issues. And I think we have to consider the taxpayers because and I believe the town is taking on tremendous liability if they even consider servicing any of these pumps on private property. They are notoriously known, if they are not maintained by the property owner properly. We all have to have generators for various things, not just a grinder pump. Most homes today, they have to put them in for a whole host of reasons, or we're losing power constantly. And if we start having the town's liability, or the town going onto the property to maintain it and something goes wrong, there are going to be lawsuits. They're going to say, well, you were responsible for it and you let it back up into my house. And that's a big problem, particularly on the seasonal properties. And again, I don't think that should be up to taxpayers to pay for those kinds of things. We have never, ever taken responsibility or liability for anything on private property, and we should not be doing it under these circumstances. I think there are a lot of exceptions that are being made now against standard operating procedure in the town. And when we say town liability, that's taxpayer liability. We're the ones that are going to be paying for it. So I hope you will take that into consideration. And I think ultimately it'll be town meeting's decision anyway. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. Mr. Bogardus?
Bruce Bogardus, Vice Chair of the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee. Just want to make sure that the Select Board is aware. I'm in full agreement that the $2,000 electrical hookup is the right number. However, what hasn't been discussed is that to install a grinder pump requires a much smaller pipe at a much lower level. A much higher, closer level to the surface. Can use different trenching equipment to get it done, and so therefore it is less expensive on average to install a grinder pump connection than it is for the gravity feed, since it's a bigger pipe and has to go down a lot further. So those are the two pieces of the installation that need to be understood.
Thank you. Yeah, Dean?
Can I ask a question, Bruce? Yes. Because I want to go back to Ann Ryan's comments, and, you know, I said what I said about this recommendation, and I think it's a good compromise, but I heard from another member of your committee yesterday who was concerned that the Water and Sewer Committee hadn't had a chance to review the town manager's recommendation. I know you're speaking as an individual. Do you have any comment on that? Your committee would have ordinarily met yesterday. It's the first Monday of the month, but.
Yes, being a representative of the committee, I would have anticipated we've been part of the conversation to pull the policy together, or at least an opportunity to review it.
I know that maybe a month ago, a meeting that had been scheduled was canceled, or maybe it was, they were trying to, your chair was trying to schedule a meeting, and then it was determined that they would wait until we heard tonight. I mean, I want to be respectful of the committee. The committee has done a lot of work. I've been with that committee for 10 years, and we have a full complement on that committee of people that are dedicated and devoted to the work of the committee, and I want to be respectful of it. And I personally would be open to deferring a vote on this for a week or two, if that's what if your committee wanted to have a chance to comment on it. But I'm at a loss because your chair is not here, and you're not speaking for the chair, but you're the vice chair.
And wasn't able to make it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to comment on that. Nobody got what they thought was the right answer. And when I say nobody, I'm talking about the public. You've heard some of it here tonight. I'm talking about SRAC. I'm talking about the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee. We have in front of us a recommendation that is coming from the staff that took all of that stuff into account. And this is not about etiquette or anything else. We have a policy. We should consider the policy and vote it up or down. That's my own personal opinion. Yes, sir.
I definitely appreciate all the work that's been put into this, but my philosophical perspective is very simple on this one. We are extremely fortunate as a community to have members that serve on our various boards and committees. Without them, the amount of work that gets done would, I don't want to think about if they were not able to perform that. I think we have a little bit of time. I would recommend we send this back to the committee for an opportunity for them to comment, and maybe they could weigh in a little bit on maintenance and replacement, of the grinder pumps as part of that conversation, because that's a continued conversation that I agree needs to happen sooner rather than later. So I'd rather keep this conversation moving forward. I think we're in a decent spot to some level, but with respect to the volunteers that we have in this community, I would send it back to them.
Good, Jeff.
When do we have to have a warrant article tidied up and ready to go and ready for our review? What's the, I don't mind sending it back to Water and Sewer, but I just want to make sure we do have a warrant article for the town meeting. I do not want to lose any kind of momentum that we have. And with all due respect to the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, I think they need a bite at the apple, and I think they worked hard at it. But I don't want to lose the opportunity for a warrant article.
Yes, so the warrant is scheduled to close on March 18th, and it would go to print soon after. The reason why we were reading it tonight and letting the various committees know that it was on for tonight is because you need to make a recommendation and on the actual borrowing authorization, which is not before you tonight, but this is a component, as well as the Finance Committee. So for me bringing it to the board first, I thought it was important, to follow your direction, to bring it to you, and have a public conversation with you as the board versus and no disrespect to the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, you could always defer to them or refer to them, but I thought it was important for you in a public meeting with public comment to receive the recommendation.
And I totally agree with that approach, and I agree with your approach this evening. I think we've had great input. But I also think with process, I think they ought to get another bite at the apple, but I do not want it to hold up our opportunity to bring a town meeting in May. I really don't. So I want it, I don't know how much more substantive work is going to be done, but with respect to your committee, can you turn it around quickly and get it back to us with your input, and whether it's on maintenance or whatever? I would just.
If I may, let's not get things confused here. The maintenance is a separate issue.
understand.
It is to be discussed in the future. It's not part of this recommendation. It's not a subject that we need to consider in the context of deciding this recommendation.
That notwithstanding, I'm asking whether or not they can turn their comments.
No, absolutely, I agree with
before
that.
town meeting.
I agree with
I
that.
really think, we don't want to lose momentum. This is a compromise, it's well thought out, it's reasonable. I think we got to get it to the town for a vote, and whether it's through the bonding or, but I would support it.
I'm just going to say, I think the cake is baked. I think the only thing you're going to get back is an opening up of a discussion that's been resolved here. And I'd like to point out that if you go back and look at the meeting in November, we said, as a board, we said to staff, please incorporate input from all three of these groups and come to us with a recommendation, which I think they've done. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we need to refer this back to the Water and Sewer Committee. I think what we should do is, this is what I would do, I would say that we defer a decision on this for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is, and if they want to have a meeting and comment on it, they can. The only issue, as you said, that's before us tonight is these recommendations, not maintenance. We've heard two sides. I just want to sort of project ahead. The maintenance issue is a controversial one, and there are legal issues to it as well as financial issues, and we're going to need guidance from town council on that. But I would suggest we not take a vote tonight, but that we defer this for 2 weeks.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I'm good with that. I think it's a process issue in my mind.
Does that work 2 weeks from now? Do we have room in the agenda for that?
We can make room, that's no issue.
Okay, good, okay.
Super good. Thank you.
All right, I guess we have a consensus to defer it to 2 weeks hence. Thank you to everybody for that. Next case. We're moving into the budget review and town meeting articles review. First up is the 2026 operating capital budget for Department of Natural Resources. Mr. Berman and Ms. Mazerol.
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
How are you?
Good,
Carrie
thanks.
Mazerol, Finance Director. We have a couple budgets to go through tonight, and the first one is the Department of Natural Resources. This budget is presented at $2,387,675 for FY 2026, which is an increase of $63,223 over the current fiscal year. The Health Division budget for FY 2026 totals $112, for FY 2026. The Conservation Division operating budget for 2026 is $422,957. Pleasant Bay Management Assessment includes a budget of $63,085. The Harbor Master Division operating budget for FY 2026 is $874,485. The Coastal Resources budget for FY 2026 is $160,000. The Shellfish Division operating budget for FY 2026 is $248,910, and there are a few committees, the South Coast Harbor Plan Committee, Shellfish Advisory Committee, and Waterways Advisory Committee that are all level funded for FY 2026 with a budget of $1,000.
Isn't Lydia's Cove Committee included in that as well?
I don't know. Sure. Where's Aunt Lydia? Okay.
Hi there, Greg Berman, your Director of Natural Resources. Aunt Lydia's Cove doesn't have a separate line item. The minutes and et cetera are taken out of the Harbor Master operating budget.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
I just had one and maybe this is not the appropriate time to ask it, but conservation, you have down 8.69% from last year. I think that's the only one I've seen so far that's down at all. Where did that come from? How did that happen?
So Greg will go over that, but that's a reallocation of a position that was reallocated in '25.
Okay.
But he'll be going over that,
Okay.
and it's reallocated to a different division, which I'll be going over that in the general government when I go through all that budget in a couple of
Okay,
weeks.
thank you.
You're welcome. The 2026 capital plan, these are the requests between $10,000 and $250,000. The Natural Resources has a request for $50,000 for stormwater management. Health requests are $15,000 for a supplemental for an EV vehicle. Conservation requests are $10,000 for conservation lands management. Harbor Master requests are navigation aids for $20,000 and Mitchell River Bridge maintenance for $45,000. The Coastal Resources requests are $100,000 for tide gate and roadway improvement feasibility assessment to mitigate coastal flooding, $10,000 for town landing infrastructure improvements. The Shellfish requests are $15,000 for a new shellfish outboard and fiberglass work, $50,000 for design for a shellfish division workshop. And there is also a FY 2026 capital warrant article request, and this is an annual request for the dredging in the amount of $400,000 with the use of the tax levy. So I'll pass it over to Greg Berman to go over in detail more of the budget for you.
Great, thank you, Carrie. Hello to the select board. There we go. So this presentation took just over an hour for the Finance Committee. I anticipate going, respecting your time and trying to go much more quickly.
Don't even
But
think
if
it.
I go too fast, just please let me know, and I'm happy to stop at any point along the way. They were very detail-oriented. Not that you're not, but as you probably know, there are 5 divisions within the department: Coastal Resource, Conservation, Harbor Master, Health, and Shellfish. We also have the Pleasant Bay Management assessment kind of within our department shell, and the 3 committees that have a budget that Carrie mentioned that are static from last year. So Natural Resources is about 3% of the overall town budget. We have I did that just for you, Jeff.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very nice.
We have an extensive list of accomplishments that are in the digital budget book. You're welcome to go over it, and I'm happy to talk with you at any point about the quality work that our team does. When we're looking just at staff costs, this pie chart's a rough approximation of the allocation within our town. As the chair mentioned, there is a decrease in staffing costs in fiscal year '26 for conservation. I'll just go through very quickly. We have 16 full-time, 1 part-time, 2 intermittent, 2 stipend, and up to 39 seasonal employees. Coastal Resources has the director, up to 3 seasonal town landing. This is a fairly static staffing costs. Conservation is the one that now has the conservation agent, the wetlands permanent coordinator, and the assistant conservation agent. We did used to have a administrative assistant. We did reallocate that over to general government, partially to take care of the sticker office and also combine that with assistance with finance and budgeting. The amount of time that the sticker office was using from some of our existing staff, this was a way to get a full-time person to be able to do both roles that are kind of seasonal and blend well together. So that's why there's actually a reduction in that. The seasonal part-times, that's primarily bird monitoring, and if we actually have to enact a HCP for Nauset. Harbor Master, this is the proposed new position. Not all of the 73,000 is just for the position. The others are for the step, COLAs, et cetera, for the existing positions. And as we go through this, I did just want to call out that we did take a look at the Harbor Master Division's budget, and while there is the increase based on the additional person, we looked for opportunities for saving within the division's budget to try to offset that. So as we bring in a new full-time person, that means we don't need as many temporary wages for a seasonal, because that person would take that up. In addition, contracted services, vehicle equipment and maintenance, this would be a boat operator or marine mechanic, and this person would take over a lot of the outside duties that have to be taken really outside of our Harbor Master workshop. With the Mitchell River Drawbridge, we have an operating line and also a capital line. With this, we would still anticipate for large repairs, we would need to go out to a contractor, but this would be for preventative maintenance, not necessarily needing a annual services contract, so we'd be able to do the preventative maintenance in-house, and this would reduce our costs for both the operating and the capital. So that 75,000 from capital will be reduced to 45, and that has been requested for, I'm not going to have the exact number, for many years in the past. That has been a standing capital request. So taking all these reductions into account, you can see the net cost is 11,614 just for the salary, and Kerry could speak more to the fringe and benefits if you wanted, but we just wanted to at least get that across, that the net impact of the division is relatively small. So it's not just a impact for the Mitchell River Bridge. Primarily, this is the boat operator and marine mechanic. Why do we need it? Just in the Harbor Master Division, we have 19 trucks and trailers. We have 15 boats, most of which are Harbor Master, but we also have some shellfish boats, and they've done some work on the fire department boats. 21 engines amongst those boats. So you can understand that if you've ever tried to have work done at a marine mechanic around Cape Cod, specifically Chatham, it's very difficult. Let's see. So.
You're gonna, it's the expectation, we're gonna find a marine mechanic that's gonna have expertise in all those different outboards?
That is the hope. So right now, one of the reasons that this is an option that we're exploring is we've seen the impact that one of our seasonal employees has had over the last couple of years. This is an employee who only works with us a couple days a week and certainly not year-round. And with that, we've seen cost savings amongst all our engines, and we think it would be a cost savings to have someone like that as a year-round basis.
Okay.
So, yes, it would be multiple across the various. We've tried to keep our models the same, but with COVID, we just haven't been able to maintain a standard model across our engines.
Thank you.
Sure. So in addition to the idea of a marine mechanic, the idea of a boat operator. So right now we have 3 full-time staff and a harbor master. Administrative roles have kind of eroded away some of the boat operator roles of those 3 staff. This would expand our boat operator and get us back up to further operational capacity. When we're looking at service rates and wait times, a lot of these marine shops can charge $135 to $190 an hour. Peak wait times can be 1 to 3 weeks. And as was noted recently, during certain holidays, these shops shut down entirely. So if you have a asset with an engine that's out, it's going to be out for as long as it takes to get a marine mechanic there. Marine mechanics used to come to us. Now, if we can actually get it, we have to take the boat to them, which involves a lot of staff time as well. Let's see. So I think that's mostly it. Overall, the idea is to increase efficiency, reduce repair delays, and overall enhance maritime safety. And I'm happy to take questions about the position, or I can move on.
Greg, some years ago, we invested in a mooring management system, and I've always sought how our return on investment in that system, how we're doing with that, and it was sold at the time, we were gonna free up administrative time so those folks could do other duties, and just wonder how that's panned out in your judgment. You're kind of a new kid on the block a little bit, so, is it working well, and are we actually making efficiencies and saving time and money for folks, or not?
It's certainly providing a good level of customer service, and I think we are turning over moorings more quickly. If people aren't using moorings, we're able to do another round. Just this past season, we're able to do an extra round versus other years due to this new system. So I do think it's providing a service. I don't know that it's necessarily freeing up administrative time. The mooring manager still spends a lot of time working with that system. You know, I'm sure they would appreciate some more boat time, but just handling that is definitely most of that position.
And Jeff, just to let you know, we have a presentation on the mooring management system on March 25th.
Oh, good, I should look at my future agendas and I'd be informed. Thank you, Jill. So I didn't know we had 21 outboards to service. Imagine winterizing those and then, getting ready and taking care of them and maintaining them. Now I kind of get it.
Yeah. The oil
those are a
changes
lot of
alone
engines. Huh?
The oil changes alone are a significant budget item.
Yeah, they are, yeah. Okay, thanks, Greg, yeah.
Sure. Next, over in health, the main change here is that we were going to add some additional funds for the intermittence employees. This is to help fund one of our staff, Dr. Bob Duncanson, in order to continue work on the NRCS projects. You may have heard recently that we were awarded a $300,000 grant. This is in addition to NRCS funding 4 or 5 of our stormwater wetland restoration projects, including the Herring Run, including Frostfish Creek, Eliphamet, Sears. So these are projects that NRCS is funding all of the design and permitting for. They're also funding 75% of the construction. We do have a existing capital line for what we had estimated 25% match to be at the time for the construction phase. We'll see what it is when we actually get to the construction. But getting this kind of across the line, integrating with NRCS, this potentially could have wrapped up a year or two ago, but this is one of the ones where we don't have surveyors. The engineers are too busy, and just the overall slowdown of the process. We do hope that within the next year and change, we can wrap up these projects, but that's where we are right now. And then Shellfish does have an increase. It's not that we're adding any new employees or hours, but just with that, relatively high number of seasonal staff, any change kind of accentuates itself. And then as we talked, Pleasant Bay Management has a slight increase. That's part of the 4 towns. We pay our share. And then those 3 committees all are level funded. For this rest of the presentation, I was going to switch over to the digital budget book. If I can get that working this time, we shall see. There we go. Take it off my face, maybe. Okay, so in the interest of time, I may not run through each individual line item, although that is an option. I'm happy to do so. You all have access and have seen the digital budget book. Here are the spreadsheets. So for health, I may just run through, what has changed. And if there's additional questions, please feel free. We already talked about the change in wages due to the NRCS work. Purchase of services in health. There's actually a significant decrease. This is due to the ARPA funds through Barnstable County paying for a significant portion of our household hazardous waste. If we didn't have this, it would be significantly more than it has been in previous years. This has been an increasing line item. But at least for the upcoming year, we were able to defray it with ARPA funds. The advertising is up slightly, and that's due to potential fiscal year 26 regulatory changes that need to be advertised. There's an additional 500 or so for an increased assessment for the Cape Cod greenhead fly control. And then for monitoring costs, that increase is due to increased rates from our Barnstable County beach testing for our public beaches, and also our cyanobacteria testing for the ponds. For shellfish, and I may not increment just because it takes me a minute to get through there. For shellfish, there's a slight increase for printing, and that's due to a potential rule change in the upcoming fiscal year and the printing of new booklets. Also, the uniforms, the increase in price of seasonal staff, town staff gear. There's just not enough to cover the folks being able to be branded as Chatham while they're out enforcing on the flats. And then a small increase for mileage as the per diem POV, personally owned vehicle, has increased. Coastal resources is unchanged, so we have a 0 on all the expenditures. Conservation. We have probably one of the more significant ones is under purchase and services. There's an extra $10,000. This is through negotiations with Mass Audubon. They're going to bring an additional staff member to our southern beaches to allow us to be able to monitor plovers, which will enable twice the amount of raking that we were able to do last year. And that's...
Is that on Harding's Beach, Ridgevale?
Yes, all those.
On the south-facing beach?
Yes, south-facing beaches, and yeah, they just didn't have the staff last year, so we're getting ahead of the game, and, you know, they need to be funded to do that, to actually bring somebody fresh on.
Thanks.
The last one is Harbor Master, and I wouldn't mind scrolling through it, but just for the interest of time, there are no increases. There are only decreases, and those are the decreases that I showed in relation to the boat operator marine mechanic position. In the capital outlay, you actually have to dive into it. We removed the boat maintenance line in that altogether, but we did add a wave sensor. It would be partnering with Barnstable County to do the installation and maintenance on it. This would be a real-time, available through a website sensor just off the bar to be able to give information to our harbor master and our fishing fleet and general public what the conditions are out there. So the idea is hopefully the county will convince other towns to do this, and we'll be able to get kind of a network, which would be more useful, but at bare minimum, hopefully we'll be able to at least let people know what they're getting into before they get in their boats. And we do still have the capital items. Oh, sorry. There we go. And I'll scroll through here. First is our stormwater. This is $50,000 that's been funded over multiple years. This is for our MS4 program. We do have a contractor on board. We currently have stormwater regulations. You'll probably hear more about those soon. Those are under DPW. And we have some additional work that we'll be doing, not just on annual reporting, but getting ourselves where we should be within that system. It's a federally mandated system. We have conservation lands management. This was also funded last year at the level of $10,000. This past year, we used some for osprey pole installations near power lines that caught on fire last year, so trying to avoid that and also enhance conservation areas. One thing that our agent and assistant agent are working on is expanding our conservation areas. We're going to potentially do kiosks, QR codes, trail maps, web maps. So starting off slow, but we are putting a grant into the Mass Trails to hopefully do this for all our conservation areas. But this is an excellent source of match for those two, which is required. Harbor Master request, as we said, the 75 is now down to 45, and then our standard $20,000 navigational aid ask. Coastal Resources, the $400,000, that is the separate warrant article that would be required. This is the same as it's been every year. You know, the main questions are whether the Army Corps is going to be able to come out on time to do it, whether we have our permits in place. Ted Keon, our Coastal Resource Director, has been working hard on getting a 10-year comprehensive permit. Army Corps of Engineers has gone slower than usual, so we're trying to get a kind of stopgap permit to cover some of that, but those are just some of the examples that, you know, we need to keep funding this dredging program. Right now, there's a little bit extra in there, but, you know, this is going to be used. Dredging's not getting cheaper, even with Barnstable County being the cheapest around. Their rates are going up, not just this year, but it's kind of incrementing over the next few years. Little Mill Pond Pier, we did have it in here, but this is going to be seen as a separate CPC article. So the entire $500,000, CPC voted to put it under CPA funds. And this is for the replacement of Little Mill Pond Pier and associated.
That's a little, how about, let's go back to the tide gate. Is that near the metal plates down there?
Yes, yeah, so this is the metal plates are pretty much at the tide gate. That's the area that's settling, and we already had a capital line to do some work. We were going to use that as match for a larger assessment and design to show, you know, what should be used. Should we keep it as a tide gate? Should it be a culvert, a bridge? How are the impacts of various storms going to increase flooding or affect the marsh migration? That was not funded by CCM. It was a very competitive funding round this year. So this is to get that study up and running because, you know, right now we're going to be a year behind if we don't get going, and we're seeing impacts. So
CCM, you said?
CCM, Coastal Zone Management.
Go CCM, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
The Coastal Zone Management Resiliency Grants were I think they had at least double or triple the applicants and half the money, so.
Yeah. Well, that's a certain area of vulnerability, so just, got to stay on it.
Yeah. And then also our standard $10,000 ask for town landing infrastructure.
Dizzy.
Sorry, we're getting there. Sorry about that.
You're going fast on purpose.
So here's our shellfish requests. One is the new shellfish outboard and fiberglass work, part of which is the shellfish division trying to save the town money, not, you know, requesting a new boat, but also this is the boat that works the best. It's the right length, it's the exact shape. They don't make them like this anymore, so money's intended to be spent to stabilize the transom, do a lot of fiberglass work, and keep it running for many years to come. Additionally, the Shellfish Division Workshop, this is to hopefully get it off the ground, do the design and permitting. The plan is to do this adjacent to the Animal Control Building, to expand that kind of where the shed is right now. This is to do relatively small projects, whether it's, you know, the gear of shellfish, whether it's some minor boat work, that kind of thing. I mean, there are other bays, but they're always in use in town, and it just, shellfish has not had space. And then the last one is our supplemental vehicle budget. Carrie, you know, talked me into this, and I think it's very good she did. We had a budget in Department of Natural Resources for 2 vehicles. We ordered, and, you know, our EV bylaw that requires the town to take first look at EVs, and, you know, we do need a replacement for a couple vehicles. We started looking at a Ford Lightning, a electric pickup truck. They are more expensive than other vehicles, but that expense can be offset even as a town with state rebates and federal rebates that usually total $15,000. So it brings us back down to where our budget was. But, you know, we didn't want to negative spend, so we were asking for this to pay the full amount, ask for the rebates, and then reimburse the 15 grand in. The question now is whether we actually get both rebates, the state and the federal. I can't guarantee that. Some of this might need to be spent for the EVs, but the plan was to, have this money just out in order to get rebates and reimburse. It might need to be spent. I can't tell you the future on that one. And with that, that's the end of my presentation, but I'm happy to get into any of the details.
I just got one quick one.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, Greg. The items that you just coursed through, they're going to be in the capital budget. The ones that are going to be broken out for a separate warrant article related to dredging, is that really the only one we see there that's going to be broken out?
Yes, the only one under natural resources is dredging.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah.
Anybody else on the board here? Dean?
I was just going to move the dredging article if you want to move things along.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a capital article for dredging, as you mentioned, Greg, for $400,000. That would be on the tax rate. So the draft article is in the packet. I move that we place this article on the warrant for the annual town meeting upcoming in May.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dyken.
Aye.
Mr. Metters.
Aye.
And I move to recommend the article.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dyken.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
All good. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next case. We have, community development? No.
Well, it was going to be community development. I don't know if Katie is online. Is she online?
She's
Sorry.
online.
I'm sorry. So community development operating budget for FY 2026, that includes the community development department and also the economic development chamber of commerce is underneath this budget. It's presented at $1,232,615 for FY 2026, which is an increase of $118,174. The Community Development Department budget for FY 2026 is $1,137,615, reflecting a 11.59% increase from the prior fiscal year, which Katie will go over all of that. The Economic Development Chamber of Commerce budget is presented for FY 2026 at $95,000, which is level funded, and that will be presented by the Executive Director, Angela Bukar, from the Chamber of Commerce and Merchants Association. So I have Katie Donovan, the Director of Community Development, to go over her budget for you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen, so if you'll just give me just a moment. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Okay, so just a brief overview of community development. We have 9 full-time employees, myself, we have the building commissioner, central permitting planner, the housing and sustainability director, the town planner, the local building inspector, a department coordinator, and we have 2 community development department assistants. And we also have 2, not part-time, but contract employees that are paid per inspection. We have our plumbing and gas inspector and our electrical inspector. Just some department statistics from 2024, just a brief overview. In 2024, we issued 1,086 building permits, 911 electrical permits, 1,152 plumbing and gas permits, and associated with those permits, we did 1,605 building inspections, 1,316 electrical inspections, and 1,657 plumbing and gas inspections. Total inspections for the year were 4,578. Got the revenue from those permits was $581,690. And we also processed 370 applications from the regulatory boards that the department assists, which is the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Historical Commission, and the Historical Business District Commission. And we took in revenue of $40,952 with those applications. We have a small fleet in community development, but proud to say that they are both 2 fully electric EVs. So we have a 2019 Nissan Leaf and a 2024 Ford F-150 Lightning. We do not have any capital requests for community development for FY26. As Carrie mentioned, the community development budget was $1,137,615, which is an 11.59 increase from the prior year. $1,015,000. So most of the increases for salaries and wages, which account for the contractual wage step and longevity increases. And the funding of a new position, which we had talked about a few weeks back, relating to a new local inspector for the requirement that short-term rentals are now required to be inspected annually under the building code that took effect on October 11th of 2024. We have other operating expenses of $122,500, which is a net decrease of $3,000. We have savings in office supplies of $3,000. We have a savings of $2,000 in publications and subscriptions. And those are actually partially offset by increases in each for $1,000 each in continuing education and meetings, dues, and travel. And that is partially due to an added position of a couple of years ago that we wanted to make sure that we had sufficient funds for continuing education for our employees. This slide just shows the information from ClearGov, and you'll see that we've got, where you can see the increases and the decreases to this different line items as described. And just to talk a little bit more about the new position, again, with the new building code, we're required now to do annual inspections of non-owner occupied short-term rentals annually. And then every 5 years, we would need to do inspections of owner-occupied 1- and 2-family dwellings that are used as lodging or short-term rentals. We currently have 922 short-term rentals registered. It would be expected that an inspector would be able to perform 30 inspections per week. So we are requesting a full-time local inspector to primarily do these inspections. However, we would make sure that they were trained so that they would be able to perform other local inspector duties as well as training our current staff to be able to do the short-term rental inspections, just so that we have cross-training for all employees. We had discussed a potential funding source, which would be to request an increase to the annual short-term rental registration fee, which is currently $50. And the proposed salary for that position is $75,520 to start. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Dean?
Thank you, Katie. I just had one question. 900, it's off the screen now, 22 short-term rentals. Do we know, are any of those owner-occupied that would fall within the 5-year rule as opposed to the annual? Do we know?
We don't know for sure, but we believe that they are actually the short-term rentals that are not owner-occupied, based on conversations that I've had with the health department staff.
Thank you.
Katie, you and I have had a conversation offline. I just want to note for the record, when the additional positions were presented as a group, there was a mention of the possibility of tripling that short-term rental registration fee from 50 to 150. Obviously, you're going to have to work that out as a factor in your overall budget, and I'm not here to debate or argue about that. I just want to note for the record my thought that that is first of all, it's a regressive in the sense that it falls, uniformly on everybody. But it's also something that is a pretty big increase in one fell swoop. So I will leave you with my fervent hope that you can find a way to fund that position without having to triple that fee. Jeff?
Getting to 100 might be okay.
Yeah, I'm not proposing, I certainly agree with that, but I'm not suggesting any particular number. I'm just noting it's kind of a regressive tax, and that's a lot of money, and to some people that may be a significant item. So I'll leave it at that. Anybody else?
Thank you. And we will need to get approval from from the Board of Health. We'll need to agree to that as well because the regulations are through the Board of Health. So the conversations began last night with the Natural Resource Director and Health Agent, broached the subject with them, but they didn't take any action either way. So we'll be having further conversations with the Town Manager and Finance Director, and then obviously with the Board of Health as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. If there's nothing else, I think we can move on.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Katie. Now,
Does anyone need a break before we?
no. What, you plan to spend a lot of time here?
So, just like Greg, I plan to spend about an hour and a half. Finance Committee on Thursday, maybe a little longer, but what's going on here? Okay. We good on sound?
Angela, do you want to introduce yourself before you play the video?
Sure.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Angela Buchar. I am the Executive Director of the Chatham Chamber of Commerce and Merchants Association, and here this evening presenting a level-funded ask for our 2 visitor booths, one of which we stage or have staffed during our high season, which is the, people would know as the little booth, which is formerly the part of the Mayo property. And then we also have our operations center, which is the Captain Bassett House at the end of Meeting House Road, or formerly 137. So this evening, I'm going to go over what budgets were proposed and accepted through membership at our annual meeting that was on October 30th, 2024. And I'm asking again for level funding for the $75,000 to cover the cost of staffing and a $20,000 economic development grant, which helps us move not only our marketing initiatives, but also support some of our social media presence, web development, and also supporting some other organizations that we help advertise and promote throughout the year. Starting now.
Hi, my name is Megan Penn, and I'm the current president of the Chatham Chamber of Commerce. In 2025, the Chatham Chamber of Commerce and Merchants Association proudly celebrates 93 years of strengthening our community and fostering economic growth year-round. Since 1932, we've been dedicated to supporting every segment of Chatham's vibrant economy. From retail shops, restaurants, and lodging, to trades, professional services, and creative industries. We understand that a thriving Chatham means opportunity for everyone, every season. Membership in the Chamber is more than a connection. It's a commitment to our community's success. As a member, you'll gain access to valuable resources like marketing opportunities, professional development, and advocacy on issues that matter to local businesses. Plus, our networking events help you build relationships with fellow members across industries because we're stronger when we work together. The Chamber also plays a vital role in promoting Chatham as a destination for visitors while supporting the businesses and organizations that make our town a dynamic place to live, work, and play, not just in the summer, but all year long. As we celebrate 93 years of growth and collaboration, we invite you to join us in shaping Chatham's future. Whether you're a local entrepreneur, tradesperson, artist, or service provider, the Chamber is here to help you succeed. Visit www.chathaminfo.com today to learn more about membership, upcoming events, and how we can support your business. The Chatham Chamber of Commerce, 93 years of building a stronger, year-round economy together.
And our current president is here tonight with us, so just wanted to welcome again Megan Penn. And also our vice president, Emma Carroll, and board member Courtney from Cape Cod 5. And I have Danita here and Dan McPhee, who are also part of the staff as well. So they're here helping to support as we move through this presentation. The budget appropriation is really to help fund our staffing initiatives and also the 2 visitor centers. It includes 13 professionals. One year-round professional who is the operations manager, Danita Scribner, and then I have my summer, or I'll say my seasonal folks that help to staff not only the Bassett House, but also the downtown visitors booth as well. And we are open 7 days a week, and we do run 2 shifts in high season. So we are the first responders, as we'll say, to the folks that are coming to town and looking for information as they walk around. And also a great opportunity to then source different information should they need that. We have a lot of detail in the presentation that I put together, but I really wanted to keep it high level just to really outline what our budgets look like for the year. Town grant request, as shown here at the level funding for fiscal year 2026 at the $95,000, which again includes what we just spoke about. So when we look at our actual income for the Chatham Chamber of Commerce, our member dues, of which we are strengthened by and also which makes us a unique organization, is budgeted and accepted by the membership at $87,000. All other income, which is our handbook, reserves disbursement, and also interest, that is in and around $30,365. The town grant and operations staff, of which I've stated in the town grant, which is $75,000, and then economic development, which is outlined in several different projects that we do throughout the year and throughout the town. Special events that we host and are significant to the chamber, exclusive, in partnership with the Merchants Association, is our fashion show. We do networking events, and then our annual meeting, which is at $20,700. And then website display advertising. We did launch a brand new website in July of 2024 that also incorporated an artificial intelligent chatbot, which is being and has provided us a tremendous amount of data and information of how people are actually engaging with the site, what they're looking for, and talking. Certainly it's a conversational chatbot that allows for us to really dive in and understand what people are looking for as they're doing their research either in town or on their way to town. So that's been great. It's also a lead source for folks. So if they're interested in finding a plumber or a gardener or a landscaper, if they are a current member of the Chatham Chamber of Commerce, they are given that lead as well. And we're growing that side of the business very quickly. And the more often the artificial intelligent chatbot is used, the smarter it gets, and we're getting a lot of data from that. So when we look at our total breakdown of expenses, town and community relations, holiday events, preservation, and IT work, our expenses there are around $10,000. Member benefits and services run us at $30,700. Information and public relations, communication, print media, and staffing at the $75,000. Buildings, grounds, utilities, forever increasing. Jill and I actually had a conversation yesterday about our utilities, and things are just, the cost of living is going higher, and those continue to increase in our budget lines. And then, of course, last but not least is the administration. Taxes, as we all know, are going up. Professional fees, travel, and insurance riders, everything that it costs for us to operate. So in difference, it's about $1,000 net if we round it up. So we're pretty much flat to, expenses to income. Second to that, and I think there's some general interest around this, is the Chatham Merchants Association breakdown. So this is their high-level P&L or high-level budget that was also voted on and accepted by membership at our annual meeting. Event income, there's always this big number that gets put into the Chronicle and the newspaper about what we make with the art in the park. That total for that online auction freight is our largest annual fundraiser for the year, and that brings in around 158, or I'll just round it up to 160. Event income for Oktoberfest, Christmas stroll, those two events together rounded up to about 63,000. And then we do do a share in revenue on membership, so that is also a line item that comes in on membership dues. So gross profit for all of these events and the fundraising around those large events that they put on, or we put on, comes in at around 230,000, with a net ordinary income of 10,000, and I'll go over that expense line here shortly. So expenses for the Merchants Association, awards usually at 100, charitable contributions to Monomoy and other nonprofits as part of those proceeds from any of our events. Event income or event expenses, advertising, rentals, entertainment, insurance, police details, supplies, transportation, anything that you can imagine, cost of goods, comes out to about $195,000 to run all of those events and to be able to pull all of this together. Total marketing expenses, and this is a share that we work with on them, we share together, is print, social media, and online as part to getting folks to town for our Oktoberfest events and also Holiday Stroll. There is a boost or what we do to generate some of that activity. And then miscellaneous expenses with professional services, rental fees, supplies, processing fees. There's a lot of fees associated, especially if they're using Square or if they're doing any sort of online. And I know that everyone, even merchant services, as you process credit cards, there's all those fees associated, and those continue to grow as well. So total expenses is $219,320 with a gross profit of $230. So there is around a $10,000 net operating for the Merchants Association. And that's what I have for you. Again, we're looking really for the level funding of the staffing for the visitor booth, and then the small $20,000 portion which helps us to contribute to some of these events as well.
Questions? Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, no, I'm a huge supporter. I do make the note that 95,000 is 40% of your budget. And I don't begrudge the $75,000 for the visitor center. Nothing galls me more than to drive into the state of Massachusetts and welcome to Massachusetts, and about 4 miles away when you're coming up I-95, there's a welcome center that's closed. Then you get closer to the bridge and there's another welcome center. Look, a welcome center, 2 miles. Closed. Come down Route 6 and there's a welcome center closed. I don't know why the Commonwealth of Massachusetts can't find monies to have a welcome center or two open when you go to New Hampshire, Maine, Connecticut, our bordering states. They're open and they're welcoming. So I don't begrudge a dime to the chamber for the welcome centers. They're critically important, and I think you guys do a great job. Where I lose it a little bit is on the 20K for the economic development. I mean, we're all about economic development, and Chatham is such a destination now. What more are we doing with that $20,000 to make us even more of an attraction? I guess is my question. And I have a couple more. I didn't understand quite frankly, the relationship between the chamber and the merchants, there's a merchant budget that spends off 10 grand or thereabouts, but a chamber budget that breaks even. So you're separate entities, but you work together. Okay. So, but you have a line item also that says reserve disbursement. Do you have a balance sheet as well as an income statement? Do you have reserves?
We do. We
Okay.
you know, and that's something that is revolving and something that we use when we start to, it gets a little bit complicated because as we start to staff the booths, our fiscal year is a little bit different than the fiscal year of the town. So we actually run September 30th to October 1st. And a lot of the spend or the money renews for the town grant on July 1st. But that's when our high season of staffing is, so we have to put disbursement funds and basically shelter funds, because the way that the membership renewal had been done, it was always on an annual basis, which was the impetus of us creating a new website so that people could join the chamber throughout the year to help our cash flow. So some of that is why that money is put aside. Additionally, for capital improvements, and, you know, I do have Danita here, who was really the behind the scenes from an operating standpoint that could probably speak better to that, but we have, you know, just a little bit of money set aside should we need to. And it's around, what, 15? Around 15,000.
Oh, so you're not packing away, you know, a couple $100 grand or anything like that?
I wish we were.
Okay. So, I mean, that's kind of where I was
Yeah.
headed. And then
Yeah.
just my question on the $20,000 for economic development. Again, are you expanding social media? How are you?
I do
how are
have
you
those
working?
slides, but I was asked to keep this
Yeah, that's
brief.
all right. If
Okay.
you could just explain it, that'd be great. Or if somebody wants to explain it, I mean.
It's more
yeah.
data. I mean, I don't,
Okay.
I guess we could dig into it. All
I
right.
have one other follow-up. I'm so sorry to be a pain, but
That's okay.
I'm of interest. It interests me. When was the last time what are your dues structure, and when was the last time you raised dues?
Great question. So 2020 was when when the association and the chamber became one. And the cost of membership did change at that point, because you could either join the chamber or you could join the Merchants Association. But as we merged, the cost of membership increased. Incrementally, what we're looking at for fiscal '26 is to actually start to package and roll some of those things together. But to go from here to there, and only being in the position for the year, we really needed to analyze, you know, how much can we ask? What do we really need to do from an in-kind sponsorship, higher level, like some of our other towns do, Orleans, Harwich, and others? How do we actually position it so that it's a membership with an inclusion? We don't want to leave out our social members that only pay the $100, but we also want to be able to capitalize on opportunities for some of the larger places, like our partners with Chatham Bars and others. But we're really trying to work through that and be sensitive. And the reason why is in 2023, prior to me joining the chamber, we brought on 11 new members. In 2024, we brought on 34, so we tripled our membership with the current structure. So I'm of the mindset to pace and go wide versus go deep, and, you know, so it's really more of a strategic conversation that we're having as a board, as the executive board, and working towards that. But we want to be cautious that if we go too high, there could be attrition. We could lose people, you know, so we're really trying to balance what is best, what are some of the other towns doing. We've done some analysis, and I do have a membership committee that is going into deep analysis on, you know, what does this town charge for this? What does this town charge for this? They bundle everything together and they name it gold, platinum, silver, whatever you want to call it. What we do, and traditionally where we've been, is that there's a membership fee, and then we just keep going back for the ask. Do you want to sponsor this? Do you want to sponsor that? Do you want to advertise? Well, we're really going to start to put it in a place where they could menu. I want to advertise in the handbook for 2026 or 25. I want to sponsor all the events at a title level. I want to do X, Y, and Z. I want to do in-kind, you know, so but we really want to be cautious about how we position that and go to market with that strategy, because we've been at this kind of pay your membership dues and then there's a continual ask. So It
It's a
is.
little different model, Angela.
It is,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think we're moving towards that as part of the committee, but we're, again,
The other piece of
Being
information I
cautious,
think is of interest, at least to me, is the dispersion of the types of businesses that, and where they're located in Chatham, geographically, the geographic dispersion. Main Street, downtown, large businesses, West Chatham, South Chatham. I think it'd be interesting to see the makeup of the membership.
we'd love to present that to you.
Yeah,
And-
yeah, I
and
mean,
also-
you can even an email, and it doesn't have to be,
Sure.
formally or whatever, but, there's sentiment out there that is downtown-centric. There is some sentiment out there that's, I just want to let you know, there is sentiment out there.
And I think that that's really, as we look at each of the villages, northwest, south, downtown proper, or Chatham Port,
Yep.
we are really trying to look at how are we going to prop up some of those other locations. And next week, the chairperson of our events committee will come and do a detailed outline of really how we're trying to do that. But business-centric addresses, what is the profile and what is the actual makeup of that look like? I have a pie chart and I can show you all,
I'm sure you do.
kind of what that looks, but
Anyway, I'm very supportive. You guys do a great job.
Thank you.
It's of interest. There's interest out there. Thank you very much, Angela.
Shereen?
Thanks, Mike, and Angela, thanks for the presentation. Just a couple of things. A lot of people get the impression that the Chamber of Commerce is just to promote us outside of the world and have visitors come and spend their dollars. But can you speak a little to the support you do for year-round businesses? Because part of our goals, select board goals, have been around more supporting the local year-round businesses than actually increasing tourism.
great question. So, and that really does fall, what we know to be true is that there is a cyclical nature of the seasonality of where we are. Where we really are finding our net new members and also supporting year-round businesses is being able to work with them, and mostly in the professional capacity with professional services, businesses that are, mostly in the nonprofit space, so that school systems, all of which, Cape Cod Healthcare, banking. We do work with our retail partners, and there are some, a lot of the questions that came in through the end of the year were, what days should those businesses be open? What days should we be closed? And even with restaurants now, with nothing being open. So that's really something that we're talking about with businesses being open more year-round so that we do have that opportunity. With respect to what we are in support of and what we're doing is we've kicked off, local networking events. We're working closely with our young professionals. We're working closely with the Historic Society and the Historic Commission, the Conservation Commission. We're really starting to promote educational talks and lectures, technology, really offering opportunities for small businesses to have workshops and to be able to really embrace this slower time of year, but be out of the gates with either a new branding opportunity or those types of things. So in the slower periods where there perhaps isn't as much foot traffic, we can help guide them through either learning the digital space and being able to really be opportunistic so they do have a year-round business, even though it may not be in brick and mortar. So the transition, great question, Shereen, is really how do we take something that has a cyclical nature but still continue to help support those small businesses to thrive when perhaps people aren't walking in the door. So each business model is a little different. Each segment of the population is a little different. It's really about being able to stay open. And Taylor Brown, the president of the Merchants Association, said this very well. She said, and Emma, you could probably attest to this too, working, at the clothing bar. She makes more in one day in July than she would make in 3 months for January, February, March. So this is bigger thing. But opportunistically, she also has an online store. So there's, we have to look at how do we find the balance? How do we help to support the businesses that are part of the chamber, but also how do we support the businesses to want to come and put a shingle out and be able to be part of this community, but be able to thrive year-round? And that's, I think, we all kind of say, how do we do this, right? So bringing in some of the merchants' events, the strolls and things that keep us, it's a little bit of an infusion, but I think we need to look at this and create a continuum that doesn't keep the ebb and flow or the spikes, I should say, the up and down.
I appreciate that. I'd have to, if you take a bird's eye view of Chatham and in those 3 short months or 10 weeks of crazy, yes, downtown is eccentric. There's a lot of economic dollars being thrown down there. But if you look at the bigger picture of Chatham right now today, our villages are open. We are a year-round economy. We're starting to build on that through the successes of anchored businesses in each one of those neighborhoods. And I'm very encouraged by that, especially, with a digital world that we're all in. But there has been some really successful moments where people have found their niche and landed in Chatham. I appreciate that. I just have one comment in looking at the merchant chamber dynamics. It's from the outside looking in, it can appear to be somewhat confusing to folks to see that the chamber isn't the overarching organization that is taking, that is in charge of the whole idea, and that the merchants is maybe just a subcommittee of the chamber instead of somewhat appearing to be a separate entity. I think I think personally, I appreciate that people are really enthusiastic about the merchant side of it, but if things were pulled together and had a more holistic resource, I think you guys would, I think it would appear and have a better success. That's just my personal view, but I'm fully supportive of funding your presentation today. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Angela. I just want to make a comment. I've made it in the past. I made it when I was on the Finance Committee when this budget was presented. If we didn't have this budget request to this outside organization, the town would have to hire staffing to handle tourism, and there's a piece of economic development. You were talking about that. We have an economic development committee, and perhaps those could collaborate. And this $95,000 doesn't even constitute a full penny on the tax rate. So I think, we need to keep those thoughts in mind. And this presentation tonight was very detailed. I appreciate it. I know you had more, but we're looking at the clock. We've got a bunch of other things to do tonight. But so I just really wanted to make that point because I think it saves the town the cost of doing this in-house, a lot of this work in-house. And we couldn't do, even if we legally could do half the stuff that you do, we couldn't do it, even with one person.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to rattle off a few numbers just because I think it's important to really understand, and this is part of that economic development. So I did an analysis. Website growth up 41%. We went from, from a frequency, and I won't go deep into it, Instagram up 26% from a followership, Facebook up 160%, total digital reach up 810 at 41%. So we are getting a return on our investment, and that's just on the digital platform. Biweekly newsletters up 33% from open, and these are membership newsletters, again, part to what I was talking with Shireen with promoting locally, not only just the businesses, but also promoting our partners and different towns as well. So looking at it more on a regional landscape and working with our nonprofits and professional development groups. Key metrics from the visitor center, this is the return on investment for the staffing, is we were actually flat to last year. Membership events, we were up 71%. Easter event, 10%, fashion show, 4%, Art in the Park was up 63%, Oktoberfest, 38%, holiday stroll up 25%, total event attendance was up 73% year over year. Guidebook, we actually made a different strategic decision this year. We printed less books, but we added a digital QR code for people that wanted to take the book on the go. So we were at a negative there, but it did have, again, give us some cost savings at a -18. So that's really the only negative but print is, people are walking away from holding books, and, you know, it's becoming more of a digital landscape. So total reach, last year in metrics, we touched 631,000 times. We actually, in doing the analysis, reached 846,301 times, up 34%. And back to the membership, as I said, we tripled our membership, up 209%. So we're in a growth mode, but we're also in a thriving mode. Back to the point, Shireen, of what you said with the optics, we are in executive session now and strategically talking about bylaw rewrites. We're talking about what does it look like to become that. And, you know, Megan is here and is championing that as well in that process. So we do have a timeline of what we're looking at, but again, everything takes time and it needs to be thought out so that we can, one, produce together, be holistic in optics, and certainly I think there is an opportunity for us to really start to develop as one, and it would be wonderful to be self-funded, right? It would be wonderful to be able to do some of these things, but I do agree with Dean in saying that this, and we're doing a lot of things for the town that would be really a Bureau of Tourism, you know, type of project. So I appreciate all of your support. We're a little engine that could, and we really do want to continue to be part of the fiber here, and I think it's important to continue to grow.
So I'm just going to leave you with a comment. I don't need an answer. It's a suggestion, and if you're already doing it, then suggestion is one thing. If you're not, it's slightly different. Anecdotally, every year I hear this is up 10, that's up 12, that's down 15, and I'm talking about retail, rentals, restaurants, motels, et cetera. If we have those kinds of numbers that are somewhat reliable metrics of Chatham economic performance for the year, if we have them, it would be good if they got publicized and circulated. My guess is that we probably don't have them. If we could have them, I think that would be an enormously helpful tool to use for your work, but also for ours in our efforts to promote, as Shireen said, a year-round Chatham economy. So I'll leave you with that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as part to the summary in the digital budget book, there are links in there that will provide that information. We could spend all evening talking and slicing and dicing. They're produced not only by the state of Massachusetts, but also through the Cape Cod Commission, and then also report through the Cape Cod Regional Chamber. So you can go in, analyze data. We can, you know, I'd love to go in, but it shows trends, it shows tax, it shows everything that you need to know to really make an educated decision, and it will break it out by town.
Okay, thank you.
So it's in the book.
Thank you.
All right. Are we voting?
No, I don't think we need to vote on anything, other than to move on.
Okay. Thank you.
Community services. Are you still here, Carrie?
I'm still here. Thank you, Angela. So the next budget is community services. Sorry.
We're with you.
Community services operating budget is comprised of Center for Active Living, Recreation Beaches, Lighthouse Beach, Human Services, Veteran Services, Libraries, Public Ceremonies, Other Public Events, Chatham Band, and Railroad Museum. This department makes up 5% of the operating budget. Tonight, we'll just focus on Center for Active Living, Recreation and Beaches, Lighthouse Beach, and Human Services. The full community service operating budget is presented at $3,135,237 for FY 2026, an increase of $283,674 over the current fiscal year. The Center for Active Living division budget for FY 2026 is $654,904, a 32.45% increase from FY 2025. And the Human Services Division budget includes an operating budget of $328,550, down 2.29% from FY 2025. The Recreation and Beaches Division operating budget for FY 2026 is $1,204,959, reflecting a 6.48% increase from FY 2025. The Lighthouse Beach Division budget includes an operating budget of $66,672, an increase of 3.32% from FY 2025. There is one capital request for FY 2026, and this is for Recreation and Beaches for $50,000 for community center gymnasium wall padding. And there are two article requests for FY 2026. The Child Care Voucher Program, and this is an annual request for 2026. We'll go over that in a minute. And also an establishment of a revolving fund, Chapter 44, Section 53E.5 for the Riders Cove Respite Adult Supportive Day Program. I always say that wrong, so that's why I'm laughing. And I'll go over that for you after the Director of Community Services and the Recreation Department head also goes over her budget as well for you.
You said it right, by the way.
I did, I know, that's because she'll laugh at me.
Good evening, Leah Lacrosse, Director of Community Services, and Amy Howell, who is the Deputy Director of Community Services for the Recreation and Beaches Division. So we have a small presentation, so we're much smaller, so we'll go through this relatively quickly. If I can get that to work here. There we go. So community services, as you know, encompasses the Council on Aging or the Center for Active Living, Recreation and Beaches, including Lighthouse Beach, and also Human Services. So CFAL by the numbers for 2024, as you can see, we had some growth here. So we had unduplicated participants, 1,487. Which is 23% of Chatham's year-round population of 6,600 plus. The total number of active outreach clients was 277. And the 4,519 units of attendance means that those 1,400 plus people signed in for activities 4,519 times. And that could be activities, it could be programs, it could be outreach appointments, it could be Shine counseling appointments. And our unduplicated transportation participants was 115 people, took 3,458 one-way rides. Grocery deliveries also, they were taken to the bank or the grocery store, wherever they needed to go based on priorities. And I do want to note our transportation program really has grown this year. We're full. We're taking upwards of, at this point, about 32 rides per day. So people are really utilizing that, and they've really come to depend on that. So our budget overview for our salaries and wages, we've gone up $157,064 this year. And that's really due, although contractual wage and step increases, but we do have the 3 new staff for the Adult Supportive Day Program. Right now we have the director and we have 1 staff hired.
So we still don't have a second staff person, but we're working on that. And that was, as you know, previously funded by the grant in '25. And the expenses have gone up $3,400, and that's in office supplies due to the increase in staff in programs, meeting dues, travel, and postage. The meetings, dues, and travels is because we have more staff that will attend trainings, especially our clinician who has to have trainings as part of, to keep her license every year. Also, postage. It's a good increase because we send out self-addressed stamped envelopes to everybody who utilizes our food program, our Healthy Meals in Motion. And last year at this time, I think we had 22 households, and we're up to 50 now. So 50 people each month get, they mail back their menus to us that we submit to the family pantry. So that's the reason for the increase in postage. Human services budget overview. So they actually went down this year in their request. And also, it's important to note that this amount of $328,550 includes a $5,700 grant match request from the Cultural Council. But it did go down, and that was, surprisingly, we had no requests from the Family Pantry of Cape Cod, Duffy Health Center, or Independence House this year. The Human Services Committee, after several meetings and discussion, decided to request $175,000 this year, up from $150,000, I believe, last year. That was a case, just in case you wanted to know, obviously the need is great, but there were 55 households last year that received awards. And so that was a total of 37 of the 55 awards, I should say, were for Chatham households, or 67%. 18 were town employees. The total beneficiaries were 80 children using the voucher funds. And all funds were encumbered by October 17th. So there were 6 households placed on a wait list. And we expect more this year, so that is the reason that they are requesting this increase. We have no capital requests at this time, which is great. And I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
Good evening. So for recreation and beaches, by the numbers, we offered just about 42 programs and special events this past year, 109 sessions, and a little over 3,800 registrations for those programs and events. Our fitness room, we have 680 active members currently. They scanned in this past year over 7,700 times through our membership system, through our scan system. We had for rentals, events, meetings at town of Chatham facilities, so that includes the community center, beaches, the parks. We had over 2,400 rentals, reservations through our system as well. And for beach stickers sold at the gates this past summer, we had about 8,700 dailies, 554 weeklies, and 52 seasonal beach stickers. And those were just sold at the gate, so that doesn't include what was sold online. So for our budget, you can see this year for FY26, we have a $62,000 difference for the salaries and wages, and that is a pretty much contractual cost for our full-time staff, and then a 3% raise for all of our seasonal staff. Expenses-wise, we have a $11,000 difference, and that is for 2 line items. most of which is for our Porta-John contracts, and that's due to inflationary costs each year with that contract that comes in. And then 1,700 for the windmill, again, for maintenance costs that are going up with inflation. Those are the only two line items in our expense that did increase. Everything else remained level funded. And so for a total 6.48% increase on that budget. For our Lighthouse Beach, we just had a small increase in the salaries and wages, and again, that's just a 3% raise to the seasonal staff that work at the beach, or at Lighthouse Beach for our beach patrol. And our expenses obviously remained at level funded. And we just have the one capital request this year, which is for $50,000, and that's to replace the safety padding around the gymnasium, which is original to the building. So at this point, it's really just, it's reached its end of life. We have cuts falling off the walls, so we're just, we need to replace it for the safety of the patrons using the gym. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions? I just have one. Leah, you showed 157,000 increase in salaries, or salaries, essentially. I wasn't clear as to how many new people for the daycare or anything else that includes. Is it 1, 2, or 3 people?
It's 3 people, 1 full-time director and 2 part-time aides.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, go
I
ahead.
do have a quick question for Leah. So we filled the director and 1 position, and those were grant funded. Now, do those grant funds carry over to the next year so we can, when we do hire somebody, they'll cover that hire?
It's a really good question. We're hoping, but we have not gotten word. We have, it was very strange when we were awarded. All funds have to be expended by March 2025, which doesn't give a full year at all for salaries or supplies or anything like that. So a lot of people, a lot of grantees are in the same boat that we are. So we're hoping that we can file an extension to keep that going so that we can expend some of those funds where, we've done a great deal with them. We've bought a lot of, furniture and everything for new staff and full new furniture for the participants and supplies and things like that. But, it would be, we can't spend the salary line item unless they give us an extension.
Gotcha. Well, we certainly should apply. Just for Amy, we break out the Lighthouse Beach budget. Why? Why don't we just include it in recreations? Is there a reason?
I believe it was because that's the one beach that's under the control of the select board, and.
Really?
Yes, and it's, I don't want to say it's the way it's always been done, but ever since I've been here, it's always been broken out. And that might be a legacy because of the former, how it was set up with the director of Parks and Recreation, which included beaches. Unless, Amy, you have any further information.
Well, I have a facetious question. It's getting late, and I apologize in advance, but are we no less in charge of Hardings Beach or Ridgeville Beach or in charge of the budgets, so?
Well, you are, but technically, as you know, Lighthouse Beach isn't guarded. There's beach patrol.
Got it, okay.
And so forth.
All right, okay. So we're even more exposed, okay. All right, great. All right, thank you.
Anything else? Yeah, Dean?
I was going to offer a couple of motions.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, so we have the child care voucher program, and there's a warrant article in the packet. And this is in the amount of $175,000. That would be on the tax rate. And so I move that we place this article on the warrant for the upcoming town meeting, annual town meeting in May.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
And I move to recommend that article. to town
Second.
meeting.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
The next motion is to place an article on the warrant for town meeting upcoming to establish a new revolving fund under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, for the Riders Cove Respite Adult Day Program. And there was also an article in the packet for us tonight, so that's my motion.
Second?
All those in favor, Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Mr. Nacastro.
Aye. And I move to recommend that article to town meeting.
And I'll second.
Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
We're
much.
good. Thank you.
guys. Good job.
So,
There is one more article in the packet that needs to be voted on, and it's for the ambulance for $410,000. We didn't have the article ready at the time when it was presented last week.
I'll take a motion unless somebody wants to discuss.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we place an article on the warrant for a town meeting upcoming in May for the capital purchase of a new ambulance for $410,000. $410,000 to be raised through taxation.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Mr. Nacastro.
Aye. Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend this article to town meeting.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Thank you.
We are at the end of our public session. I'll take a motion. Mr. Nacastro.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Select Board go into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, parentheses 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, parentheses the Chatham Municipal Employees Association, CMEA, and Chatham Managers Association, CMA, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, with no return to open session.
Second. All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
We are in executive session at 8:32 PM.